I would like to invite the fire department to come forward and lead us in the pledge. We've got some great firemen here. Gentlemen, if I could get the fire department to come forward and lead us in the pledge. We'd all stand and face the flag. Gentlemen, that means forward, not backwards, not hiding in the back.
Not actually going to the fire, that's why they're moving.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And Chief, before they all sit down, I assume they're here to recognize them. The rest of y'all can have a seat. Chief, if you'll bring forward the reason that we have all these wonderful firemen here tonight. And we'll let them leave early and go back and fight fires after this presentation.
Mayor and Council, thank you for having us tonight. We're here to honor one of our firefighters, Chris Cooper. Chris Cooper started with the city of Roswell in 1983, went to the police department, and he finally saw the light and came over to the fire department in 2002, which we are so glad he did. Since his employment with the fire department, Chris has taken on the Fire Safety Education Division and has moved this program into a new level of education with our children and adults in Roswell. Chris teaches fire safety to our children in the Fulton County school system, where he averages over 300 classes a year and makes over 10,000 contacts. In 2006, the Roswell Fire Department was recognized and awarded the Fire Safety Prevention Program of the Year in Georgia with the help of Chris. In 2008, the Roswell Fire Department was awarded $63,000 for our fire safety trailer through a FEMA grant that Chris Cooper authored and administrated. Chris has always been involved in Safety Town, which is one of the premier events that we consider in Roswell, that is put on by the Parks, Recreation and Parks Department, along with the Fire and Police Department and other departments in the city. And it educates our children on the safety of being children, and it's a great thing. Chris is an active member of the Georgia Public Safety Educators Association and was given the Fire Mark Award from Liberty Mutual for his dedication to improving the lives of citizens of Roswell through fire and life safety programs. This year, Chris was chosen as the Georgia State Fire Safety Educator of the Year. It is presented to Chris on October the 11th, 2011, in Forsyth, Georgia, at the Georgia Public Safety Training Center by Ralph T. Hudgens, our Fire Safety and Insurance Commissioner. It gives me great pleasure to work alongside of Chris and have him on our team, which we have a good team in Roswell, from the mayor and council to all the departments, and especially our employees. They're our greatest asset. And tonight, I would like to present this award again to Chris, but it's coming from the Roswell Fire Department, and it says, 2011 Fire Safety Educator of the Year, presented to Chris Cooper, City of Roswell Fire Department, Roswell, Georgia, for your professional attitude, personal commitment to providing fire safety education in the lives of citizens of Roswell. Your dedication in providing fire prevention education through the community is exemplary. Given by Ralph T. Hudgens, Insurance and Fire Safety Commissioner, October 11, 2011. Ladies and gentlemen, Chris Cooper.
Let's have a hand. Chris, the microphone is yours. If you could begin by giving us the fire safety tip of the week.
We have one almost every day, Mayor, but we start off with our program for the most part with the children. That's our focus in the elementary schools and the middle schools. We still have the leading cause of fires in the United States, and Roswell is no exception, is unattended cooking. Those are not the fires that typically injure our residents, but they do a lot of damage, easily preventable. We carry that along with the smoke detector messages and everything that we can do. We've got some great schools in Roswell. Some of the schools don't allow us in for 3 or 4 weeks at a time. Swidop Elementary is an exception. We're typically there about 10 weeks out of the year. For the most part, the fire department constitutes the health grade in many of the schools inside Roswell. And I would like to point out that we don't do what we do in order to get any kind of award or anything. It's a conviction. It's something that we enjoy doing. But that doesn't lessen our appreciation of the time that you take and the time that the residents of Roswell take to acknowledge us. It means that much more to us, and thank you very much.
One more hand for these gentlemen. Chief has signaled me that he would like a picture with the firemen, so I want all the firemen up here in front of the dais with Chris and the chief in front. And the council. Next, it's my privilege to recognize National American Indian Heritage Month. Whereas the history and culture of our great nation have been significantly influenced by American Indians and its indigenous peoples, and whereas the contributions of American Indians have enhanced the freedom, prosperity, and greatness of America today, and whereas their customs and traditions are respected and celebrated as part of a rich legacy throughout the United States, and whereas Native American Awareness Month began in 1976 and recognition was expanded by Congress and approved by President George Bush in August of 1990, designating November as the National American Indian Heritage Month, and whereas in honor of National American Indian Heritage Month, community celebrations as well as numerous cultural, aesthetic, educational, and historic activities have been planned. Now, therefore, I, Jerry Wood, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Roswell, do hereby proclaim November 2011 as National American Indian Heritage Month in the city of Roswell, and urge all of our citizens to observe this month with appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities. And with that, do we have any programs and ceremonies? The Daughters of the American Revolution. I didn't know y'all were Indians, too. Thank you. Do we have any American Indians here tonight? Do we have any descendants of American Indians here tonight? Come on, stand. Oh, if you can claim some American Indian heritage, stand up. Nancy Diamond, Becky Wynn, stand up. I have to admit, one of my great grandmother from Arkansas was American Indian. Her name was Ray Dicey. I've been to her gravestone, and I have a picture of Ray Dicey. ugliest Indian woman I've ever seen in my life. But she was clearly full-blooded Indian. You know, there was no question in my mind. So thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We appreciate y'all bringing that to our attention, and we hope to celebrate American heritage. And the rest of you who are denying your Indian heritage, step forward next year. We probably all have a little bit in us as long as we've been here. Absolutely. Thank you.
We would have done a war dance.
Well, next year we'll have to do a war dance. Nancy and Becky and I can put together our Indian roots and come up with a war dance. Next, I would have a proclamation recognizing our GIS department. For those who don't know, that's Geographic Information Systems, which has revolutionized record keeping and systems in government. It's now we can find things. It's a wonderful thing. Geography Awareness Week. Whereas GIS Day was introduced in 1999 by ESRI, Environmental Systems Research Institute in Redlands, California, in coordination with the National Geographic Society, and whereas GIS is instrumental in creating and implementing programs to help in the timely emergency responses and to support the efficient operations of water, street, public buildings, addressing, and public safety. And whereas since 1990, the City of Roswell has had a dedicated GIS division, and in 2004, Roswell's zoning map was featured in the annual ESRI map publication, representing exemplary maps from around the world. And recently, a new website was created for the public employees to show representations of land records, economic development, subdivisions, transportation, public works, and zoning. And whereas the City of Roswell GIS Department will host an open house on November 16th from 10 to 2 at Roswell City Hall, which will be open to the public and will showcase maps representing the different aspects of the City of Roswell and demonstrating software and the highlights of what GIS means and how it helps our community. Now, therefore, I, Jerry Wood, Mayor of the City of Roswell, do hereby proclaim the week of November 14th through November 19th as Geography Awareness Week in the City of Roswell, and I call upon all of our citizens and civic organizations to acquaint themselves and to recognize the contributions which GIS division officials make every day for our safety, comfort, quality of life, and efficiency of government. Now, Alice, who's here tonight to talk about GIS? Come forward. She's the department head who is make sure that we have the best GIS department in the state. And to begin with, if these people want to go online to see to locate things on our geographic information system, how do they get there?
If you just go to the Community Development Department landing page, and there's a pull down for GIS, and just follow the prompts, and that will lead you to the page. If you have any questions, you can give Scott Huffman a call. He's the GIS manager. You can give me a call. Can't guarantee you I can get you there, but I can get you to Scott or one of the other GIS folks, and we can help you there.
If we go to this GIS page, what can we learn about Roswell?
Well, you can pull up your property. You can see if your property is in the floodplain. You can see the footprint of your structure on the property. If you go to the aerial photographs, you can see what subdivision that you're located in. You can see how your property relates to the rest of the city. It's just a long laundry list of information. It's a very good research tool. It's sort of like the cell phone, especially for us planners. I don't know how we survived before GIS, but it's a great research tool, and it's a great visual of different parcels.
So if you want to get a bird's eye view of your property and count the trees and see what's in your neighbor's backyard, you can go to this GIS map and get a bird's eye view.
Yes, sir.
So be careful out there in the backyard. You never know when somebody's flying over. Thank you, and we appreciate all that GIS does for the City of Roswell.
Okay, thank you.
And with that, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Motion by Councilmember Price, second by Councilmember Diamond. Does anyone in the audience have any questions regarding the consent agenda? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously. Which brings us to Community Development Department. Councilmember Betty Price, liaison to that department. Councilmember Price.
The first item is DRB appeal of the October 4th, 2011 decision of the DRB's Design Review Boards regarding DRB 11-37 stadium lighting and sound system at Fellowship Bible School. Mr. Townsend will give us the details. Excuse me.
Before you this evening is an appeal of the Design Review Board decision for this Fellowship Christian School related to their field lights and sound system. What I'm going to put up on the screen is the actual section of the code that relates to the council hearing this decision. What I've highlighted in yellow is that the decisions shall be made based on the record presented at the Design Review Board, and substantial evidence standards shall apply. In your backup material, we supplied the minutes of the 2 board hearings of the Design Review Board, as well as the information supplied to DRB related to the sound and lights.
The council have any questions for Mr. Strickland? No, go. Mr. Townsend. No questions. For those folks in the audience, this is not a full review of the earlier council decision to allow the conditional use permit for stadium and lights. Tonight, the ability for Fellowship Christian to have lights in public address system is not being reviewed. The DRB, that decision has been made. It's outside the authority of the Design Review Board to overturn that decision. It's not, that issue before this council is not whether or not those uses are allowed. The only issue before this council is the design of the lights and the sound system. And so if you wish to address something beyond that, I'm going to rule you out of order. You need to address the design of the lights and the design of the sound system. And if you wish to present new evidence, that's not before this council. You need to argue, if you wish, what was raised in earlier hearings. And given that the burden is upon the appellant, we're going to hear from the appellant first.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. I'm Don Rollator. My address is 11660 Alpharetta Highway, Suite 630, Roswell, Georgia. I represent Fellowship Christian School, which is the applicant in DRB matter 11-485, DRB 11-37. My comments will be directed to the record. The Roswell City Council approved a conditional use application by Fellowship Christian School on July 11, 2011, being CU 11-02, subject to 9 conditions. The time for challenge or appeal to that decision expired August 10, 2011. At that time, the conditional use became final. No appeal was made. Pursuant to conditions 5 and 9 of the approval, Fellowship made application for review of the lighting system and sound limiting system with the Roswell Design Review Board. The only matters for consideration in that application were the lighting system and the sound system for the stadium to be constructed. The DRB considered the application on September 6, 2011. Fellowship made a full presentation on the 2 issues, including presentations by its sound system vendor, CEI, and its lighting vendor, Techline Sports Lighting. The systems and equipment presented by the vendors were the same as made before the Roswell City Council on July 11, 2011. No alternative systems were presented by the DRB or on behalf of the city. The DRB elected to consider the hearing preliminary and took no action on the application at that meeting. A final hearing was held on the application October 4, 2011. At that meeting, no alternative systems were presented by the DRB or on behalf of the city, and no indications were entered into the record that the systems and equipment presented would not perform as indicated. At both hearings, DRB members discussed issues not related to the matter at hand, and public comment was received, which comment was generally addressed to the zoning conditions and demands for additional conditions. That subject matter is not within the authority of the DRB. At neither hearing was any substantial evidence introduced that the sound and lighting system proposed would not do what they were designed to do. The vendors confirmed that the systems were state-of-the-art and were using the latest technology. From the September meeting, I'll cite you pages 8 through 10, page 18, page 28, page 32, and page 37 to reference that. These were confirmed again at the October 4th meeting. Sound was discussed at page 2. Lighting was discussed at pages 4 through 5 and at page 6. There was substantial evidence that the limiter device prevented sound levels outside the property above ordinance levels, and that the 80-foot pole height more effectively limited light spilling outside the property lines than 60-foot poles. There was no evidence to the contrary. The result of the vote at the final hearing on October 4th was a 2-2 tie with one abstention. Under the Roswell City Code, a tie is a denial. Appellant appeals the October 4th, 2011 decision of the DRB pursuant to Section 31.2.9 of the Zoning Code, and respectfully asks the Council to reverse the DRB decision and approve the sound and lighting systems proposed by appellant, based on the substantial evidence rule set out in Section 31.2.14 of the zoning ordinance. Appellant insists that this appeal be conducted on the record, as provided in the zoning ordinance. Appellant objects to any consideration or discussion of matters not on the record. Appellant hereby informs the mayor and council that this objection shall be renewed with each and every speaker permitted under the public comment, and asks that the mayor note this objection at this time so that we don't unnecessarily interrupt the meeting.
Your objection is noted.
Thank you, sir. Any consideration of matters not in the record is damaging to appellant, denies the appellant a right to a fair hearing, and it violates appellant's rights to due process and equal protection of the laws under the Georgia and United States Constitutions. The only issue to be decided on this appeal is whether or not there is substantial evidence to approve the sound and lighting systems proposed by the appellant. We deem it apparent that there is no substantial evidence that they failed to meet those criteria. We respectfully request your decision on this issue and would like a little time in rebuttal should it be necessary. Thank you for your time, Mayor.
Does the council have any questions for Mr. Rollator? Councilmember DiPolito.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had a question regarding some of the information, a technical question. Should that be addressed to you or to somebody?
It would be fine with me if the answer would be in the record.
There was discussion regarding having louvers in the lights themselves on page 25 of the minutes. And the information that we have been given, that is apparently a copy of that, does not show those louvers in the lights themselves. Do we have incomplete information, or are those louvers supposed to be included?
Would you repeat the question for me, Mr. DiPolito? I'm not sure that I understand.
There was a discussion at the Design Review Board about having louvers inside the lights so that when you looked at the light, it protected from the glare of the bulb itself. In the information that we have, I don't see those louvers included. So I'm questioning what are we asked to vote on tonight? Because there was a discussion in the record about having louvers. The drawings that we have shown that supposedly were in the record don't have them. So which?
I understand that the louvers were presented and were included because they cause a 24-degree deflection in the lighting, and that makes it so that you cannot see the direct glow of the bulb off campus. That's my understanding.
So the louvers are included.
I wasn't there that night. It's the best I can tell you from reading the record.
Well, I guess if you're
Here
asking
is
us to
the
make a
question,
decision.
it is as proposed tonight. Are the louvers included or not? That's a simple question.
The louvers are included.
Mr. DiPolito, does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rollator.
Thank you.
Any other questions? At this time, yes, Councilmember Price.
I got, just to clarify, please, the height of the poles
80 feet,
and how many poles?
4 poles
4, and they're located where?
on each side, 2 on each side. Yeah, 2 on each side, the 50 in the goal line is what I understand. Correct?
Say that again, please.
Jeff Van Pelt, 12907 Eatrice Walk, Roswell, Georgia. They're on 2 on each side of the field, right against the track. When I'm on one end, it's at the 15-yard line, roughly, and on the other end, it's roughly at the goal line. Just based on where they would fit in where they are. And that's where they've been on all the lighting studies that we've done.
And this was as presented to the design review.
As presented, you know.
Other questions? Thank you. At this time, we'll hear from the audience. If you would like to speak, if you'll come forward, give us your name and address. If you've got any questions, we'll hear your questions. If you've got any argument, we'll hear that argument. Come forward, please.
I'm Janet Russell. I live at 260 Willow Springs Drive, Roswell, Georgia. I don't live near this school. I only have an observation. Does this school have no shame? When are they going to stop appealing every decision made by this council and now by the Design Review Board? Clearly, the Design Review Board said no, and the answer's no. I would hope that you would stand behind your Design Review Board. If you don't, just dismantle it. Because it seems like no matter what happens, they're back for another appeal and another appeal. I went to a Catholic school and I was taught that you educate people by having a good role model. And the only role model I see from this school right now is just keep pushing till you get your way. All the people that are sitting behind me in their maroon shirts, I would really like to know how many actually live in Roswell. I have no idea. But if they don't live in Roswell, it's really nice that they came, but they should have absolutely zero influence in your decision.
Who'd like to speak next? If you'd like to speak, raise your hands, please. If I don't see any hands up, we're going to conclude the public hearing. I see no hands up. Public hearing's concluded. Mr. Rollator, I see very little, if anything, for you to rebut. All right, this time, does the council have any questions or comments before we entertain a motion? Mrs. Price, Councilmember Price, I believe it's to you to make a motion.
I appreciate everybody coming out tonight, and I know there has been some confusion about the DRB's actions. They had 2 meetings. The first one was an initial application. They were not required to make a decision that evening. And the second one, due to some absences and a new person on the board, it resulted in a 2-2 tie, which is not that they overwhelmingly or even at any point voted against it. So the appeal is because that there was a tie and no decision, essentially. So that being said, and I think all of our questions have been answered. I think we were assured that these are state-of-the-art, highly directional. They did not address the decibel max on the sound. So are we supposed to do that, or was that part of the motion that was then denied, or did they even get to that point? I don't think they even got to that point. So anyway, so my motion would be to are we acting on the appeal, or are we acting on other matters?
Mr. Davidson, would you respond?
You're acting on the appeal. That is all.
And then then I move to approve or grant the appeal.
And that would be to approve the design as submitted by Fellowship Christian. Just for confirmation.
Well, I think there may
that would be the result of approving this appeal.
Right, but there would be some amendments that would be necessary. Should I add those at this point?
Mr. Davidson, is that within the scope of what the council is entitled to do?
As long as it was based on what was presented to DRB, this council can approve what was submitted and what's on the record, but they can't go outside of any of that.
Ms. Price, I think to further sort of clarify that, the appeal has to do with the design of the lighting system and the design of the sound system. This is not the forum to discuss the hours of operation, the days of operation, or the manner of operation, or the uses. It has to do with those uses were approved by this council. So if it has to do with the design of the site of the sound system or the design of the lighting system, and based upon the record, that would be appropriate to include in the motion.
Right.
But it's design of the system, not the hours or the
yeah, I understand
use.
That. The point being, though, that there was a lot of discussion in the Design Review Board about decibel maximums. They, of course, reiterated that the applicant had already agreed to abide by the city ordinance while normally schools are exempt. So we know that's a baseline, having referred back to our previous meeting. But we didn't get from this any clear direction as far as a decibel maximum on the sound system and any other ongoing monitoring of the light bleed. So I guess I would like to...
But first of all, if we could go back to what the conditions were approved with council, did it address the decibel level?
No.
Mrs. Wynn, I believe you have a better recollection than I do. What was your recollection?
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, but Mr. Rollard, I think that didn't the school agree, a verbal agreement to limit the decibels? I think it was 65, if I'm not mistaken. I think so. Yes, sir.
So
it was a verbal agreement that they would do that, sir.
So is that, Mr. Davidson, is that verbal agreement binding, 65 decibels?
Well, it's not in the conditions. However, the applicant is saying that's okay. It was in the motion.
Is it in the record?
It was in the motion at DRB. It wasn't in the council's motion, if that's what you're talking about. But they agreed to follow the noise ordinance, the city's noise ordinance.
The noise ordinance are they exempt from the noise ordinance?
They would be, but they agreed to abide by it at the council meeting.
At the council meeting?
Yes.
Mr. Rollator, is that correct? Did you all agree to the 65 decibels at the council meeting? So wouldn't that set the decibel level at 65?
That would.
So is that an issue anymore?
That's not an issue.
Mrs. Price, do you believe, does that satisfy your question about the decibel level?
Well, I believe it's an issue because in the second meeting they discussed it repeatedly, whether it would be 65 or 70, and I don't believe that there was any resolution of that matter.
You're talking about the DRB?
Correct.
Well, what I'm understanding is that issue was previously resolved at the council meeting at 65 decibels, not 70, but 65. So although things may have been discussed that went outside of the scope of the Design Review Board, if that issue was resolved at the council meeting, and the council meeting established a decibel level of 65 as being the maximum, that would be binding.
Mayor, if I may, I believe what was discussed at the council meeting was that they would be bound by the city's noise ordinance. The discussion at DRB is what they would be considered as far as whether it was commercial to residential. And I think that's where the DRB's discussion went. And I think Mr. Flowers wanted them to be subject to, I'm not sure which one, the 65?
Yes.
Well, I think that if they agreed to be subject to the city ordinance, it would be up to the staff to make the interpretation of what they are, not up to the DRB. DRB doesn't make those interpretations. Has staff made an interpretation of how they would be categorized under our noise ordinance? No, but they said they would be subject to it. That was established at the council level. If they were subject to it and they weren't exempt, what would they be categorized as? I'm just trying to decide whether the issue has already been resolved or not. I'm relying upon you to look at it, too.
I'm going to look at the city code for that.
Mayor, I have it here, and it's based on the receiving property, and it has the decibel level set at 70 from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m., and from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. at 60. Next, that's for the receiving property being a residential property.
So they would be bound by that 70 certain hours, 60 other hours?
Right.
Is that your interpretation?
Yes.
And Mr. City Attorney, is it your interpretation that's what the council ruling was? 60 or 70, based upon the receiving party?
Yes.
So we have resolved that question. Is that a fair statement at the earlier council meeting?
That was decided at council, and they agreed to be bound by it. Yes, sir.
All right. So, Ms. Price, do you have a question about the decibel level now?
Only that in their discussions, it looked like they were moving towards 65, and you're saying, I guess, that they had no authority to do that since it had been decided?
That would be, it goes beyond the scope of the Design Review Board to decide whether they are exempt from the noise ordinance, and if they're not exempt, what it is. That would either be a council decision or a staff decision. That's not within the scope of what DRB has the authority to decide. That exceeds their jurisdiction.
But we did have agreement from the applicant at our last council meeting that they would abide by 65. Was that right? Or 70?
No, they would comply with the noise ordinance, which says the person who is hearing this, it has to be 60 decibels at certain times of day and 70 decibels at other times of day. And that's what we would agree we would comply with that ordinance as if we were not exempt.
And do we need to further define where that is audible and how that is detected?
I believe our noise ordinance defines that, correct?
Yes. It's the receiving property.
So a neighbor at the property line of a neighbor.
Right.
Okay. Okay, that's regarding the sounds. We've got that covered. The lights. Now, the lights was a little confusing because there were poles that were going to be somewhere that won't be there in the future, et cetera, et cetera. And now, are these coexisting poles, lights and sound, or are they totally separate?
If you'll come to the microphone, please.
Jeff Ampel again. The only poles that won't be there in the future are the ones that are going to hold the speakers for the sound system, because they're going to be mounted on a future building. After that's built, we'll take the poles down and put them on that. The light poles are the same, and every time we presented them.
And the lights are just, they're 5?
There's 4 light poles, and they're all down at the track on the field level, and they're 80 feet high, and they're 4 of them.
2 on each side.
2 on each side.
Okay, I'm
The one that you
I'm
read,
reading
where
the
there were some that are only going to be there for a little while, and then they're going to be taken away. Those are for the sound system speakers pole. They're only 12-foot high poles.
Okay. I have no additional amendments.
Right, do we have a motion?
To approve the light and sound systems with limitations as proposed by Techline for the lights and as proposed in the Dominator 2 precision multi-band peak limiter system for the sound.
I'm not trying to ask if that's acceptable to you. Is that understandable by staff and the appellant? Everybody knows what that means. I'm not sure what that means, but y'all know what that means.
That was what was presented.
All right, we have a motion to approve the designs as presented. Motion by Councilmember Price. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Wynn. Any further discussion before we entertain a vote? Councilmember Eichelhardt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I realize there's not a whole lot to be said at this point, as I've gone around and around with Mr. Davidson prior to this, but I thought when we put this forward to DRB that we actually did ask them to figure out a lot of this stuff. That's generally what we do. But as it comes back, apparently that's not what they were asked to do. But in the section of the zoning ordinance, it does say that they shall consider design that protects adjacent properties from negative visual and functional impacts, which would be impacts of sound and other things. But, frankly, your fate was decided July 11th, and there's not a whole lot to be done at this point. I didn't vote for it, but the majority did. So, sorry, but there's not a whole lot to be done at this point.
Other comments before we entertain a vote? All in favor of the motion? Yes, Councilmember Price.
Now, we are told that there was 0 light bleed at the property line. Should these lights be erected and then there is bleed into the adjacent properties, what is the recourse at that point?
You'll have to turn to staff for that question. If there's a violation of these conditions, what's the action of council?
Depending on which violation there is, then you cite them for not being in compliance and get them to be in compliance.
Okay. Any other comments before we entertain a vote? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. That's Councilmember Orleans, Price, Wynn, and Diamond. All opposed? Councilmember Eichelhardt.
I'm going to abstain since I didn't support the original motion.
And Councilmember DiPolito abstaining, so it passes 4-1. If you'll call the next agenda item. If there's any folks who don't wish to stick around for the next agenda item, if you'll leave quietly, and if we'll have someone close the door after they leave. Thank you for coming tonight.
The next item is RZ 1109 and CV 1102, 350 and 370 Rucker Road, Ashton Atlanta Residential LLC, land lot 1240. This is an item that was deferred from the October 10th meeting, and Mr. Townsend will bring us up to date.
Mr. Townsend, if you'll wait just a minute to proceed until we clear the room. You'll proceed.
Thank you, Mayor. Before you this evening is RZ 1109 and CV 1102, a proposed rezoning to R3A. The applicant is requesting development of a single-family subdivision originally containing 28 lots. An applicant is also requesting a concurrent variance to the minimum lot width from 80 feet to 60 feet. This is the subject property. There's 2 existing homes, a church to the east, a subdivisions to the north as well as west, and single-family homes to the south across Rucker Road. This is the current zoning map showing the FCA. It was identified when the property was annexed into the city of Roswell. What are you looking for, Mayor? You have a question?
Does the council... Well, first of all, I know there were a lot of issues about the connector and the trail, and if you'll
We'll
address
get to
those.
that. We can get to that.
All right, we'll proceed.
The applicant started with a proposal that included connection to the adjoining subdivision through the public right-of-way. After the neighborhood meeting, that connection was removed and a single cul-de-sac was placed for the single-family lots. A lot of the discussion has been centered around the connection issue as well as joint detention. As I mentioned, there has been a recommended for a rezoning as well as the conditions for this dealing with these variants that would allow for the 60-foot lot widths. What was discussed at the prior meeting, you have this in front of you, is submitted with the memorandum from myself. There were 7 standard conditions that we placed on the property. We had numerous discussions. I'm going to start with condition number 1, which deals with which site plan is to be approved. Condition number 2 talks about the connectivity that was required by the Planning Commission. The connectivity as a street has been removed but has been replaced by a pathway. Condition number 3 deals with a left turn lane. That left turn lane was originally placed on the property to be installed by the applicant. After numerous discussions, that has been removed and replaced by the applicant, giving the sum of $50,000 to the city for future improvements to Rucker Road prior to the issuance of a building permit. Condition number 4 deals with the Crabapple Registry and the applicant having a joint stormwater management dealing with the detention pond being commingled together. That way there is only one detention pond between the 2 subdivisions at the north end. Condition number 5 has been complied with. They've provided the 20-foot landscaping. And condition number 6 deals with making sure that there's no access to Rucker Road from the subdivision. So the way this was presented prior to deferral, we amended condition number 1, 2, 4, and 5, replaced number 6, and removed number 7. That's the point that we were at in dealing with this when it was deferred at last council meeting. There has been numerous discussions as to the discussion dealing with detention, dealing with connection of the access road, and what type of connections that would be. I will let the applicant as well as the neighborhood discuss their positions on both of those issues. If you have any further questions of staff at this point.
Will the staff have a position on this proposed trail connection?
Staff began with it being a road. Staff thinks it should be a road.
If the council accepts this proposed trail connection, what conditions would you suggest?
Excuse me, please turn on your microphone.
The question is this: if the council accepts the proposed trail connection, as shown on a plat I've got right here, I presume that would need to be expressed in the form of a condition.
Condition number 1 should be amended to include that drawing.
All right, now who is going to build this proposed pervious trail?
Date of that drawing.
Mr. Davidson, what drawing are we looking at?
November 1st.
And so who would be responsible for
Ashton Woods be responsible for the connection of the pathway from their subdivision to the asphalt in the Crabapple Registry.
So they would cross the city right-of-way.
They would use city right-of-way to connect to the road, yes.
And this detention common area now also becomes to some extent, it becomes right-of-way for a trail.
No, none of the detention common area is right-of-way.
Well, where there's a trail from the cul-de-sac.
This is common space in their subdivision.
But here's my question. This is going to be used, I assume, in perpetuity for a trail?
If council chooses to.
If council chooses to
Right.
approve this.
Right.
Wouldn't we need to have some sort of how do we, a trail easement is what you're suggesting, and would that need to be a condition?
Put a trail easement over this section of this common space.
I would assume there's a trail easement and perhaps a maintenance. I don't know if it needs to be wider than that for maintenance. If you need to if the city in the future needs to maintain this trail, it needs to be wide enough so you don't slip across that 1 inch and encroach upon those people. All right, but it will. So the condition would, if the council chooses not to require the street connection and instead have this trail connection, then we would need a condition to express that and an easement.
Yes.
All right. Do you have before we get to that point, I hope you all will have a proposed draft if that's the direction the council wishes to go in.
Okay.
Does the council have any questions? Councilmember DiPolito.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Townsend, I noticed on this sketch that the path veers down to the south, and I assume that's because there's a fire hydrant potentially located in the north part of the right-of-way?
Right there.
Do we know the exact location of that fire hydrant? Is it possible to get on the other side of it to get to the north of it?
No.
No. Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Diamond.
Mr. Townsend, on the recommendations of staff, I didn't see any reference to number 6 about the plat shall indicate a no access easement for the tow lots along Rucker Road. I didn't see removal or recommendation.
That was
on the
included
list.
in our staff recommendation. That it be included.
Okay.
Other questions? Thank you, Mr. Townsend.
Thank you.
At this time, we'll hear from the applicant.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, Pete Hendricks, practice law at 6085 Lake Forest Drive, Sandy Springs. There has been a lot of mutual outreach between the applicant, Ashton Woods, Mike Fisher, and also Crabapple Registry over the access issue and over detention. And fairly simplistically, after all that discussion, what it really comes down to is that the parties are completely agreeable to shared access from Crabapple Registry's perspective, provided that there not be any level of interparcel access between the two subdivisions. With that said, Ashton Woods, and that then results in a 28-lot subdivision. So if that falls by the wayside and we cannot gain the support of Crabapple Registry to have the shared detention because of the requirement of the interparcel pathway access being discussed, we then default to the plan that is dated November 1, which shows the 27 lots and with detention completely on the Ashton tract, and with Ashton providing the trailway access over to the property line, and then if it's your directive that it be continued through the Crabapple Registry, that it would be continued through the Crabapple Registry. So that's where it sits. We're in a position to go with either one that should be within your discretion as to how the community is best served.
Thank you, sir. Does the council have any questions? Councilmember DiPolito.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just noticing as you were speaking that the stormwater eventually goes into their detention facility anyway. So is that was that approved by the staff?
Sotier Christopher, civil engineer for Ashton Woods, 280 Settendown Court, Roswell, Georgia. It currently drains in and through their pond, but is not. That pond does not provide detention for our improvements, so therefore we're going to have to piggyback and have a pond on our site that would continue to drain through their pond to the discharge point. We would factor in modeling both ponds together to make sure we're not increasing flows in compliance with the city ordinances and regulations.
Well, is that customary for one subdivision's stormwater to flow into another detention facility?
At times. If there's an upstream basin that's modeled and has to go through your pond, you have to account for that. You don't detain for it, but you have to account for that flow passing through your pond. It's not typical that you see a pond back-to-back in this scenario, and that's why there was a big push to do a combined detention pond. But in a lot of cases, a development, whether it be commercial, residential, et cetera, that detention pond will carry off-site water through the pond. It doesn't provide detention for that water, but it has to pass it through.
It has to flow downstream.
It has to flow downstream and go where it was going originally.
And where it was going originally was into the Crabapple Registry subdivision?
Correct. There's an inlet right next to where the 10-foot trail would be. Right. That inlet collects the majority of the Ashton Woods tract, routes it through the pond to the subdivision to the North Farm.
So the water is currently flowing into the right-of-way into that inlet?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Thank you, gentlemen. You'll have an opportunity for rebuttal if there's nothing else to add.
I would like to add a couple of things if I could.
Yes, sir.
Just quickly, Mike Busher, Ashton Woods Homes, doing business at 1455 Roswell, Georgia. And just to piggyback on what Pete had already mentioned, I did want to thank members of staff, Brad, Jackie, Steve, and David in particular, for helping us get through that. If that was lost, it shouldn't be. They really did a heck of a job helping architect this. Anthony Russell and the Crabapple Registry also, I want to say thanks to them, because obviously we've tried very hard to reach what we think is a compromise. But the 2 points that we took away from our meeting last time was define the scope and the terms and conditions of your shared agreement, if there is to be one, and with the mayor's comment in particular that this pedestrian path was very important. I believe I said in the record that we were silent on it just because there wasn't an outcry to have it. That was not the message we took the second time around. And so where we are tonight, as Pete mentioned, is a little bit of a stalemate in that we do have an agreement with the registry upon which we could share detention. However, that agreement is very much conditional on not having a pedestrian path in the right-of-way. And I wasn't able to grant that because I'm obviously heard just the opposite from council. And so what you'll probably hear from the registry tonight is their very visceral reaction to not wanting the path. What I would say as the applicant is we really will default to you on that decision. We would obviously request a vote in favor of one of the plans, but that's the reason why we have the alternative sketch with detention on our site with a pedestrian path that connects. The location of which, if it's in dispute, obviously we're happy to work with both the city and the registry to, as long as it's in the right-of-way in a place that's favorable. I'm happy to do that, and I also realize that it's at our expense as well. That's the only thing I wanted to add.
Thank you, sir. Thanks. Any other questions the council may have for the applicant? This time we'll hear from the audience. If you'd raise your hand, we'll recognize you. If you'd come forward, give us your name and address. Yes, sir. Come forward, please.
Hello, good evening. I'm Anthony Russell. I live at 12198 Lime Ridge Court, and I am the Crab Apple Registry HOA president. And I just want to echo what Mr. Busher just said. After meetings with Brad and his staff and members from transportation, we sort of went to the drawing board and we came up with a solution that we thought would allow the city to achieve the regional detention and connectivity of the two parcels without the actual construction of a trail. And so if there were an opening or a gate added between the two subdivisions without putting down gravel or some type of surface that would allow movement between the two areas and citizens to use that area to pass between the two subdivisions, our subdivision would go along with the regional detention. And so if the council chooses basically that they would prefer a trail, then our subdivision can't support regional detention, and we would just ask that you choose one or the other. With the shared detention, we believe we could achieve connectivity. With the trail, we're not willing to share our detention. I am a little confused by the previous comments about the flow from the proposed Ashton Woods Pond flowing into Air Pond. I don't quite understand how that would be achieved. If they're talking about constructing some type of a pipe between the two facilities, that's sort of news to me. But based on the drawing that you have had up there previously, if a trail were needed to be built, I would be opposed to it going through the center of the strip of land. I don't think that's necessary. I think there's room to put it on the north side of that strip of land, hugging the pine straw area along the pond. There's a fire hydrant that is square in the middle of that parcel that is considered the city's easement. And so I have a picture on my phone that I could show you all if you wanted to just take a peek at it.
I think the site shows this, and I want to get to the question of where that trail runs second. But you questioned about how does the water flow from the detention pond, if it is on the Ashton Woods property, how does it flow downstream? And so if I could get the engineer back up here and show us where the outlet structure is and what the nature of that would be. It doesn't show the outlet structure in this detention pond. If you could put that site plan up on the map and sort of show how the water is going to flow. I presume I guess it just overtops that detention pond, or what?
Currently, there's an inlet right here at the pointer, which is just south of the proposed path.
Inlet for what?
It's a storm inlet. So the rainwater that hits the Ashton tract will drain into that inlet and into the pond. That drains into the pond. They provided detention. There's the outlet structure, which drains out into the North Farm subdivision.
So there's an inlet on the existing within the city right away. This is not on the Ashton Woods property. This is not a new facility.
Not a new facility.
All right. But if I'm looking at your detention pond, so it flows from that detention pond in this pipe to that existing facility.
Yes, our stormwater runoff will be collected in the pipe system, routed through our detention pond, collected in this outlet structure right here, down to where it's currently flowing, which is how you design every site.
So your detention pond will slow down the flow of water, store it, and then slowly release it in through the existing culvert system.
At the existing rate that it's currently flowing.
Mr. Russell, does that answer your question regarding how that works?
It does somewhat. I guess would it, Mr. Christopher, would it only flow into Air Pond if the Ashton Woods pond filled up? Similar. That's how ours works. We have an overflow that would, once Air Pond fills up, it spills into this bunker that goes into a pipe into the, so is that how yours would operate?
That's just conventional detention pond. The outlet structure has different openings to allow a certain rate of water to pass through. We'll be held by every city ordinance and regulation. We can't adversely affect your pond. We'll have to model your pond along with ours to make sure that we're not increasing the peak flow from pre-developed to post-developed.
To answer your question, Mr. Russell, it will not have to rise to the top of the level of that detention pond, but the rate of flow should be no greater than the rate of flow is today.
Okay.
They should not be, the idea of the detention pond is to extend the time in which it flows. There's a rain event, it slowly comes out of that pipe, and it's sized by that pipe, so it should not increase the burden upon your detention pond.
I understand. Thank you. Appreciate that.
And if council got some questions about the detention pond, then I want to talk about the trail. Councilman Orleans.
General question.
Let me then, before I get to your general questions, I've got a question about the trail system. It appears from the site plan that the reason they had to write this trail to the south of the hydrant was there was not enough room between the hydrant and the edge of the property.
Yeah, I guess I would disagree with that.
Well, I understand the disagreement, but here's a question. Have you all considered the possibility of granting an easement on this common area detention water facility so that this trail could be routed with plenty of room north of the hydrant?
Mr. DiPolito suggested that when I talked to him last week, and so I think that would be something that we could discuss with the city.
I would support that. I think everyone in this room recognizes the benefit of one detention pond and the reduced cost of maintenance if folks share that. And as I understand, your objection is the only objection to a common detention pond is that you object to the current location of that trail. If that trail was what's the other objection?
Any trail.
You don't want a trail at all?
No, sir, we do not want a trail.
So it's not just that you don't like the location of the trail. You would rather not have the trail at all.
Right. We would rather it just retain its current state of a grassy area. We're not opposed to the connectivity. We're just opposed to the addition of that trail surface.
So regardless of where the trail surface is, you would object to it?
Yes.
Then I apologize. I misunderstood your position.
No, you're fine. I do want to show you a picture of that piece of land.
The floor is yours. You may show the council the picture.
You can see from my phone. It may not show up, but here is the. It's
you're going to have to describe it to us.
So maybe I could just pass it around for you all to see. But
let's do this. Here, Anthony.
Got it. Okay. The fire hydrant.
It's going to be too black. Yeah. They're not going to see that.
There you go. So you can see the fire hydrant is a good 30 to 40 feet from the north end of that common area.
Right.
And so I would argue that, if a trail were to be built, it could be built hugging the north end of those trees so as to maintain as much of that green grass as possible.
I agree with you, okay. And what I'm suggesting, but you're telling me whether we move it north of the fire hydrant or not, you're still opposed to it. It's not going to make any difference in the common detention area.
We are. We just feel like that a trail's not going to really be used there. The grassy area is more favorable to us. And, I think I've explained their position. So,
I understand your position.
I would make two more points. The first being I support what you were saying, that if there is a right-of-way on the Crabapple Registry side of the fence, as we say, then I would think that the city has an interest in ensuring there's a right-of-way on the Ashland Woods side of the fence. And my final... Easement.
Trail.
I'm sorry, I'm going to count it.
And again, I apologize. If you'll say that again, I'm not following.
Okay. The point you were making, Mr. Mayor, about is there a reciprocal easement on the Ashton Woods property, similar to what the city is maintaining on the Crabapple Registry property, I would agree that there should be some type of easement there so that the public could use both sides of the trail.
Yes, sir, that easement would be there. It would be an easement held by the city, which would be could be used by the general public.
And so the other point that I have is how would maintenance of these, of the broader area, the grassy area that is the easement in Crabapple Registry, and then that gravel or trail, how would that be handled by the city?
I would presume that if once it's built, it would be treated like when someone builds a street and dedicates it to the city, it becomes the city's responsibility for maintenance of that trail.
So for the past 6 years, we've been maintaining that piece of land. The grass, we have it cut every week. In the winter, we have the leaves blown. Is the city proposing to take over maintenance of the grassy area once they build a trail there and they make it into more of a public use type facility?
If it becomes part of the public use, I'm not sure we'd mow it every week, but it would become the responsibility of the city.
Okay. I just think it should be the responsibility of the city if they're going to construct a trail there. Otherwise, we're happy to keep maintaining it like we've done for the last 6 years. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else wish to speak? Yes, sir. Come forward.
Michael Harmon, 12203 Lime Ridge Court, Alpharetta, Georgia 3004. I would like to thank council for listening to us over the course of several weeks here in the past. I'm not going to really say a whole lot about connectivity issue. I kind of feel like it's not my land, so therefore I should no longer comment. I will say, though, in all fairness, I don't understand why the church next to us got away with no connectivity as well, because the whole city of Roswell is all about connectivity from what I've heard in the past, and I'd like to know why that has kind of been, why we no longer hear about that. So that's my only comment on that. I wish somebody would answer that question, because I've asked some questions to the city in the past, and I don't get some answers on those issues. So can somebody address that?
As far as why have we not addressed connectivity in the past?
No, sir. Connectivity to the church that is also should have been connected, that was originally proposed, that was taken away.
It should have been connected.
Yes,
and
sir.
if we were here to do it again, we would connect it. But unfortunately, we in the past we did not require connectivity, and we can't require it after the fact.
Well, that's what I'm saying with ours is like, that's that land in between the properties. But I don't want to go any further than that. I want to address more or less safety. Make the best decision possible on the pond and road and whatever. I'm okay with that. The connection, y'all make the best decision. My concern is with safety here, and I've got some prior cases that I'd like to address, and I'd like to address something early on, but. Two areas to bring up. One is about the density. I'm concerned about the density. I feel like it should be no more than 3 homes per acre, similar to communities around the area. And the other second concern is why there is no turning lane on Rucker Road. I would like to point out a zoning case that is right across the street from the property, case RZ07-03, should be reviewed. I've got some city documentation that I think is important to show y'all in case of this. Here's a statement. I don't know. Let me see what the best. How do you lower this thing? Now, the reason that this is important is this is right across the street from the property. And this is, I think this is actually, I'm not sure, I don't want to speak for Brad, but I think this is his recommendation. And you see the highlighted thing here. One of the conditions, this is what Brad said, and one of the conditions is that the subdivision total no more than 17 lots. This brings it under 3 units to the acre. So my question is, this was pointed out before. This was something that the city made, a motion on. And not only this, I mean, I go to a different case. Anyway.
Face up.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. There we go. This is a different one, but even then, with this being Nesbitt Ferry, a comprehensive plan for the area and the city of Roswell has a suburban designation between 2 and 2.5 acres to the unit, to the acre. The density of the proposed rezone is 1 point. Okay, this is just to make my point. This is a statement by Brad. I'm trying to figure out why we're getting over 3 homes per acre, and I've got additional documentation I'd like to show you. I've got a gentleman named James R. Erickson, which he was actually one of the people that proposed this plan. This was back in, I think, 2007, 2008. But I'm going to, he's at 365 Rucker Road, Alpharetta, Georgia, 30004. I'm going to read the letter, and this is his statement. I have 2 concerns about the proposed project for this rural property. Our property at 365 Rucker Road, across the street, petitioned the same body during the 2007-2008 timeframes. Our developer had requested 3 units per acre. Not only were we denied the zoning, but we were reassigned from AG1 to R2. As a result, our taxes have increased. We lost any possibility of selling the project to a developer due to the lower density zoning. Now we are facing foreclosure. The Sproles have been good neighbors, and I only wish the best for them. But if you approve this request, anyone that knows the facts can see the unfairness of what happened. My second concern is about traffic. There must be some type of turn lanes for traffic control. It is not unusual for us to sit as long as 5 minutes to get out of the driveway and onto Rucker Road due to the heavy traffic. To approve this project without any improvement of traffic flow is going to create an even bigger headache. I'd like to pass that around. And then the way I understand at about the $50,000 that is being earmarked for future road improvements, my question is, does the city agree that there is a problem with the traffic safety on Rucker Road?
Please turn on your microphone.
The question to you, Mr. Asenbrack, is I understand the transportation staff is supporting the condition that in lieu of a turn lane, they pay $50,000 for future improvements.
Yes, sir.
And your logic behind supporting that in lieu of a turn lane.
We discussed the need for this improvement generates the need for turn lane improvements. The applicant basically claimed a financial hardship that if we asked him to build this in total on himself, financially the numbers don't work. And so we wanted to make the point that we felt that the requirement for the turn lanes was important, but we accepted the fact that it was probably in the neighborhood of $150,000 to $200,000 to make the needed improvements with the tapers and the sight distance and those sorts of things. So he agreed to, we basically went into a partnership on sharing the cost of making those needed improvements.
Thank you, sir. I'm not sure that responded to your question, but at least you've given your logic behind the decision.
Well, actually it does. To me it says there is a problem. And I mean, if I'm correct in hearing what he said, So I guess what I'm trying to wonder is if the city's holding money, why don't we have a time frame of expansion of Rucker Road, which could be, nobody can give me that answer. I don't think there is an answer. So I want to know, is the city going to be accountable if there's a terrible accident or fatality? I'd like to know who's going to accept liability for that. I feel like this lane could save a life. If you have the $50,000 now, do something with the money now to save a life now.
As far as the plans for this road, Mr. Eisenbrecht, isn't this one of the projects in the Transportation Investment Act? So to some extent, the timing of improvements in this road are tied to passage of the Transportation Investment Act. And I'm not going to guess whether or not that's going to pass. That'll be voted on in June of 2012. And if that passes, how much money is in this project for Rucker Road?
Mayor, this is the project that actually binds 3 communities together. This is working with Milton and Alpharetta. I want to say it was in the $17 to $20 million for Arnold Mill, Rucker, and the Howes Road operational improvements.
So if the Transportation Investment Act does pass, there's this road will redesign, and this issue will be addressed.
Mr. Mayor, I kindly ask that's my problem. If it does not pass, this money should be earmarked, and a turn lane should go in within 12 months. My life's in danger every day. Families' lives are in danger. You know what's funny to me is like the pond's one issue. Nobody's going to die over a trail or a pond. Somebody's going to die on Rucker Road. And you know, I want to know if I'm the one that's killed out there, who's going to help take care of my wife. Because there is a problem here, and it seems like it's being admitted to. But the other thing I want to point out, has there been a trip generation study for this case? If not, I'd ask the city to perform one.
Mr. Eisenbrecht, would you respond to that question?
Yes, there's been a trip generation estimate for this. Single-family residential homes generate about 10 trips a day. With 28 lots, that's 280 trips per day.
I'd like to ask, what was the date of that study performed?
It's been a few months ago. I don't have the exact date. You're welcome to get a copy of it.
Okay. I got something else I'd like to show you. My whole thing with this connectivity issue, I've been told time and time again, is connectivity is what Roswell wants to do. So I want to go back to something that's here again, public record, and this is from, I guess, I don't know if this is an email or whatever, but this is going back to that Rucker Road proposal back in the past. And this looks like it says Roswell standard construction specifications. And I'd like y'all to see this because I kind of want some uniformity of what Roswell's striving for here, because I'm not sure. I mean, if y'all approve the current plan the way it is, then it's not concurrent with what should be. So here's something else that you can look at. And all you have to do is look at...
If you'll get this where we can read it.
Okay, just look at number 1 I highlighted. The other ones play a big role too, but I think this is, I believe, Jackie's statement. If you can look about the turn lane there, y'all were requiring them to have a turn lane. What's different between them and us? Why are we not being protected here? I think I've asked a lot of good questions, and I think I've got the city's acknowledgement that there is a problem with Rucker Road. I mean, I don't know if they clearly came out and said it, but I'm assuming that y'all are saying that the city is saying that there is a problem with safety and traffic on Rucker Road. I'd like Brad to address that. Is that correct?
Well, Brad would address land use issues. Steve Eisenbrecht would address
I'd like Steve
issues. And I don't think their question is safety is always of utmost importance to this city. But in making decisions regarding road improvements, you have to look at the cost benefit. And I don't believe we believe that it's my understanding from staff is that although it's a concern, it's not of a high concern. That's correct.
So the safety of lives of Roswell and that traffic is not a concern to the city. You know, what's funny to me is why did y'all have this back when y'all had this against, When they made this proposal back in the time here on this statement, why were y'all requiring them a road and you're not requiring Ashton Woods to put in a turn lane? Can you answer that for me?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
It's hard to go back and address each issue when you haven't been prepared for it, and I appreciate your questions. But to say on another matter, what was the logic behind that? I'm not sure we're prepared to answer all those questions.
I understand, Mayor. I understand, Mayor. But here's my point behind this. This is the same area. This is right across the street. What makes y'all came up with a plan for the same area then? Why now is it different? The traffic on Rucker Road has probably gotten worse.
Mr. Asenbrack has indicated he'd like to respond.
I think there's an element here that maybe is important, and that is that the area around Rucker Road actually has had a different ownership. It was Fulton County. For instance, Crabapple Registry wasn't permitted and platted by this city council. It was platted when it was in Fulton County. And when the annexations occurred, basically at the advent of Sandy Springs becoming a city, then there was a movement to basically incorporate all of the unincorporated areas. And so different parcels went through different elected officials and different municipal codes. So you can say, and I understand your point that, it's like right across the street. Well, when it was right across the street, but it wasn't the city of Roswell. You understand? Well, so they had different elements. It just went through a different process.
My point is, though, you're accepting the $50,000. Why are you taking Ashton Woods $50,000 if there's no problem, or if it's a problem that can wait? And my other question is, Roswell, since Fulton County, Roswell has different standards. And here again, here's another thing. Y'all requesting 80 foot instead of 60 foot. Why are y'all going back to Fulton County ways? I thought the whole connectivity thing was to get to Roswell standards. Why are we dropping our standards here? That's all I'm asking.
You're really comparing apples and oranges.
I mean, regardless of apples and oranges, how is the 80 and the 60 front? I mean, regardless of the situation, you're getting $50,000, correct?
Yes.
Why are you accepting $50,000 if there's not really a problem?
I do support the acceptance of the $50,000 because we will hold that to use when we go back with a larger scale improvement of Rucker Road to reinvest that in Rucker Road to make it a safer road.
I don't disagree with that, Mayor, but the one thing I like to say is there should be a time limit. A time limit of 12 months to a year. I don't want something dragged out 10 years. I plan to live in this area a long time. I plan to live there. Why can't we put a time limit on this? I'm wondering, what about contract law? How does this affect? Because I thought it had to be earmarked for a period of time. Am I wrong on that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, what's the rules on that?
It does not have to be earmarked for a period of time.
So it can just sit there, and y'all feel that's the best use for it?
We believe that it's appropriate in this circumstance to wait until we make all the improvements on Rucker Road to address this issue.
So in the meantime,
set aside some money to add to to what the state's giving us.
So in the meantime, we adhere to connectivity. We do all these things that Roswell wants, but my safety is in jeopardy, and apparently that's okay. I just don't understand why my safety is not being listened to here. My neighbor's safety. It was actually a few months back. It was proposed by the city that they needed a turn lane. Why was that taken away?
It was further considered. And as far as the safety issues, we appreciate the safety of all of our citizens, but to address all of those issues, we have to set priorities as which issues have a higher priority and which are more unsafe conditions. And this does not reach the same level of a safety issue as a lot of other problems we have in the city of Roswell, which have a higher priority because they are more dangerous than this.
Well, I don't know if I agree with that, Mayor, because you've got one of the crime and stuff like that. If you look at Roswell records, I think they're pretty strong. I think traffic safety is very, much a debated topic here. The city taking the money, to me, all I want to say is I want to know who's going to be accountable.
The city.
Okay, that's what I want to know. And I just want to say this has been a long, long process, and I really appreciate your time and energy.
We appreciate your interest in it. Other comments from the floor? Yes, sir. Come forward. And if you'll give us your name and address as you begin, we would appreciate it.
My name is Sriman Janno, 12191 Limebridge Court, Alfred, Georgia. I'm a resident of Crybaby Registry. I'm just next to that, whatever lot we are discussing about that green space in Crybaby Registry.
So you're in lot 16? I'm
lot 16. So I am the one most affected by any of decisions you are going to take today. It's not only the lot, the street or whatever trail, also it depends upon the detention pond also. It is all next to me. I mean, when I bought this home, there was a clear, I think this has been probably a couple of months it has been going on. We have been coming here for probably last 6 months. So in one of our meeting, we clearly shown in that plot, it is saying that a road needs to be connected or any trail needs to be connected before the permission given to the lot 16. That has been, we have been brought that to your attention so many times. Nobody has given a clear explanation why you are not taking consideration of that note in that particular plot. Okay, whatever it is, I mean, then there is a coming of city easement, and we have been making a negotiations, we have been talking in our homeowner association. There is a lot of agreements going in our end. And finally, we made all we are asking today is like as Anthony, our Crybaby Registry HOA president told, that okay, we are okay to share our detention pond if that is your intention. That is good for Ashton Woods as well as Crybaby Registry. But what we are asking is just to maintain status quo, whatever it is in our Crybaby Registry. We don't want to like anything like, I mean, we are open, even we are also open for the connectivity between the two subdivisions, if that is the connectivity is a big issue. But as they pointed out by my another neighbor, but in our first original plot, there was a connectivity between that Ashton Woods to church. But whatever the reason that has not been disclosed in this meeting, that connectivity is removed between that Ashton Woods to church. But we are always talking about this connectivity between these two subdivisions. That to be what we are saying, we are open for a connectivity, but we don't want anything new on our subdivision that may affect our neighborhood and green space, or if there is any future traffic and future residents to come in and walking or whatever it is. I think a lot of our city council members came to our neighborhood. They have seen the green space, and everybody appreciated that what we are doing. For last 6 years, even though you are right now, city is claiming that it is our right of way, but we have been paying so much money. We have been maintaining last 6 years with green space with a lot of improvements in that area. So all I'm asking today is with the city council, mayor and city council is maintain the status quo. Whatever you want to do the connectivity, okay, we will open for connectivity. If you want to share the detention pond, okay, we want to make agreement with our Ashton Woods somehow how to share that detention pond. So I want to urge you one more time. I want you to bring our problems in front of you guys. Please make sure that, I mean, don't even just putting like a 3 feet, 4 feet trail may not make much difference what you're looking in grand vision. Not as connectivity as you are visualizing. So, I mean, there are a couple of issues that are going on that. So, I'm asking one more time. I'm asking request to one more time. I think you guys can listen your residents' concerns. I think you can address our concerns. This is probably today, I think we are all fed up to come to even city council meeting also. Today only few neighbors have showed up. But when we had this first issue, a lot of 20, 30 people came up. Even our family members and kids, everybody wants to, they have written letters to all of you guys. I mean, today we are all tired. We are patient. We are requesting one more time. Please maintain status quo in our Crybaby Registry, and we are open for connectivity, and please try to understand, sir. Thank you very much.
I want to thank you for coming tonight. I think what some folks are not recognizing is that I hope the council will support a compromise between the connectivity which our transportation department is asking for, which is a paved road. What this plan that Ashton Woods has presented is a compromise between a paved road which is the connectivity that transportation wants and the transportation which our future land use calls for. And a gate or no connectivity. So I see it is a compromise. And so I'm supporting a compromise. You raised the question of why aren't we asking for connectivity with the church? If I was in a position to ask for connectivity with the church and they were asking me for a development plan, I would be asking them for that. I hope that this council will continue to ask for connectivity whenever the opportunity arises. The fact that we have missed these opportunities in the past was a lack of foresight and a lack of a recognition for the need of connectivity, which I think we now all recognize. Mistakes made in the past do not justify mistakes making in the future. And finally, if you want to know what the status quo is, the status quo is this shows a road connecting these two developments. We are asking a compromise from the status quo to, in essence, eliminate what would have been a connector street and replace it with a pervious connector. And as I understand, y'all have no objection to the connectivity. At least that's what your HOA is telling me. You would just rather see it not paved. My concern is if the city's going to be responsible for maintaining this and it's not paved, it's more maintenance. We need a surface which is easy to maintain rather than a dirt path.
Mayor, I will disagree a couple of points, whatever you said. I mean, it is not the past. This is the first time when the Transportation Department has requested a connectivity between these Ashton Woods to church. It is not the past. It is the same city council meeting with the same city people, same plan. In the first plan, there are 7 of the rules Transportation Department asked. That is one of the connectivity also between the Ashton Woods and church. It is not the past. I think you told the same thing to other neighbor also. That is not the truth. That is the same. Yeah, I think you can go back to the first original plan which Transportation Department is approved. And if status quo, I think we are in a different pace actually. I think status quo is, in my point of view, Crabbe Registry side, whatever the green space is maintaining. And there are so many points has been compromised either to please Ashton Woods or to please the transportation departments. And either it is the right line which we are talking about safety, about just my neighbor mentioned. There are so many compromises has been made. I mean, it is not. I mean, just we are now nobody is really cared about that. Ashton Woods neither care. Crabbe Registry doesn't care about the trail, but only city council members, just because of the grand vision, whatever. Wherever you are coming from, that you want to have the trail. I mean, that is the only one our objection. I mean, we don't. I mean, something is very good and something it is not going to be useful to a lot of residents, either our side or their side. I mean, just because of you want to do that, I mean, that doesn't really add any value to our neighborhood. And that is just I want to make clear that. Couple of things your understanding is not really correct. Thank you.
Thank you for coming tonight. Who else would like to speak? Yes, sir, come forward.
Hi, my name is Shirish Kundur. I live at 12186 Lime Ridge Court. I'm resident of Shirish Kundur. Shirish Kundur.
If I mispronounce it in addressing you, I apologize.
No problem.
It's new to me.
Sure. I understand. No problem. Correct me if I'm wrong. This connectivity, I think, is only between these two subdivisions. And I don't see a reason what we are accomplishing just connecting these two subdivisions of Old Roswell. I understand the connectivity, having all the subdivisions interconnected and all that, but connecting these two subdivisions doesn't really make sense to me. I mean, like we said, we can have like a small gate or something which we can interact with the next subdivision and all, but having a trail down really personally doesn't make any sense to me. I just wanted to point this one point out.
Just to respond, it makes sense to me. I understand it's just two subdivisions, but we're trying to create system of connecting all subdivisions. And secondly, I know that when I was 10 years old, I would go play with my neighbors, and I would want to be able to get from one neighborhood to the next.
Yeah.
So it may not make sense to have a pedestrian connectivity if you're driving a car, but if you're 10 years old, it makes a lot of sense. And I can remember when I was young, and it would have been nicer not to trespass across people's yards and develop a lifetime of bad habits, and actually have a public connection. And I know that as a cyclist, I like to see these connections, because in cycling we try to connect between different things, and this would create the same sort of connection whether you're 10 years old on a bicycle or you're 62 years old on a bicycle. It gets you around. And from a city standpoint, we try not to have separate neighborhoods. We try to have neighborhoods that communicate with each other and become a part. And I hope that if this council passes this connectivity, that you'll find that you've got great neighbors that are moving in, and you'll be able to visit them with a short walk, not through somebody's backyard, but with a pedestrian connectivity, and that you'll have other great neighbors and make new friends, and your children will make new friends, and it will be a great city.
Like we everybody's saying, we are for connectivity, but not with the anything paved on our side. We can have a gate, we can communicate with our neighbors, we can pass through that gate if we want to come pass through each community. Once the Ashtonwood subdivision is constructed, I don't see how you can connect that subdivision to the church following the east of Ashtonwood subdivision. So I think the connectivity stops there between these two subdivisions.
I cannot foresee the future, but I know that in our past experience when we were working with the church off of Holcomb Bridge Road and building a trail there, they loved the opportunity of having a trail connecting their church with Horseshoe Bend neighborhood, because churches need to recruit families, and the best place to recruit is from their neighborhood, and there's no better way to get folks to come to your facility than to have a pedestrian connection. So we hope that in the future the church will see the wisdom of this. They may not today, but the goal here is on this occasion and every other occasion we have in which we can create connectivity in the city of Roswell, we need to do it.
But I don't see that in the near future. That's my concern. I don't know if I'll see that connectivity, but I wanted to bring this point on.
And you live in Roswell as long as I have, I certainly hope that you'll see that connectivity, and I'm going to try to make it happen.
Personally, like I said, I don't see anything.
I've got some other comments. Councilman Orleans.
I was going to try to clarify on the connectivity to the church was in the original plot.
Right.
The only reason that's been adjusted is to try to work with your subdivision to eliminate a pavement coming through there. So that's where it came from. So everybody keeps referring back, why aren't we connecting to the church? You're why we're not connecting to the church. We could easily go back to the first site plan and connect to the church. And it'll connect to yours as well. So we're trying to work with your subdivision. We're trying to work with all the different angles on here. So I just wanted to clarify that on the connection to the church. And I think Mayor Wood was thinking earlier on we didn't get a connection on their property, but that's not what you're talking about. You're talking about the connection in the original subdivision. So I just wanted to clarify.
I'm only talking about the connection between these two. My point is connecting just these two subdivisions is we are not trying to accomplish anything. I mean, we could still connect with these two subdivisions with some kind of entrance without any payment between the subdivisions. That's the only thing I wanted to say.
I feel like I'm early for this, but I'll go ahead and throw out. I agree with you. I think there should be a path on the church side, even if it's just a pedestrian path, and I'd like to see us look at how we might be able to accomplish that within this. There is a pathway made ready on the other side of your subdivision for that property, should that get developed at a future date. So that will continue on the west side. But on the east side, I would love to see at least an easement for some kind of a footpath similar to what we're talking about in between your neighborhoods. I want to go back to, I think this all kind of started, it seems like, because some of you and your neighborhood were told that would never be anything.
Right.
And unfortunately, that was not correct.
Yeah, even when I bought my house, I think I was the last one to buy.
Right, and that wasn't Roswell, that wasn't Fulton County, that was simply you were not told the correct information. And I'm sorry that happened, but we can't start on that premise because that was not correct information. That was always intended to be a road, even when it was Fulton County. And it does seem like we're coming quite a ways down from a total road to an emergency road with balusters, to a path that goes through the grass, to a path that doesn't go through the grass. It seems like quite a jump that we are trying to give here. I don't know that you are going to love the maintenance that the city does as much as you love the maintenance that you guys do. So that's totally up to you. We have a similar park in my neighborhood. We choose to maintain it because we want it to look a certain way. The city will maintain it, but it may not be to the standards of what you're thinking of. So if you're figuring that into your thought process, you might still want it to be, your maintenance if you want it to look the way you want it to look. Because, we do what we do, but we're not unlimited funds and resources. So, that's the flip side of it. But I would like to see us look at that path on the east side, and I see the guys over there figuring on their plans, so I hope that's what they're working on. Oh, there is a sewer easement on that side, but, I don't know if that's the best spot for it or not. But, even at whatever point the church might have an option to tie into something, I'd like to have something there they could potentially tie into. I think that's all I got.
Anything else? Yeah. Anything else? I think Councilman Price, Member Price.
Having met with the interested parties on numerous occasions, we've seen these plans sort of morph from one thing to another, and it's hard to know what really we're dealing with at the moment. It seemed like in the beginning we had a kind of a yin and yang with the shared detention being one goal and connectivity being another, and it kind of got to the point where it seemed to be either one or the other. And I'm still not sure, and maybe if Mr. Mooring is here, he might elaborate on how important or valuable a shared detention facility is.
Price, before we get to that, questions back to the staff. I'd like to get to the opportunity for the public to be heard, and then if we've got questions for staff after the public's had an opportunity to be heard. But right now, it's the opportunity for the audience to be heard. So if you'll hold that question,
okay,
until we give a full opportunity for the audience to be heard and any rebuttal by Ashton Woods, and then we can come back to questions for staff. Is that okay?
Sure.
But if there's something that specific questions for the folks who come to the podium or some comment on that would be appropriate.
Well, there were many things that I agree with this gentleman and most of the people in Crabapple Registry as far as the use of that green space path, et cetera, and I'll elaborate on that at a future point.
Thank you very
sir.
much. Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to speak? No, sir. The rule in here is you have one opportunity to speak, and unless there's something, and if there's something you need to bring up, you might ask somebody else in the audience to bring that point up. But we give everybody one bite at the apple, as much as you want to eat at the time, but not twice. Yes, sir, come forward. If you'll give us your name and address.
My name is Krishna Rauri, and my address is 12174 Lime Ridge Court, Alpharetta, Georgia. I'm here to say, support the same thing. We don't want to say any connectivity. If at all, you want 100% connectivity, you want to have a gate. If, as you said, in future you are going to connect all the subdivisions, we can have, whatever the way you want. Right now we just want to connect gate and leave it there. That's why our request. And as for, Ms. Diamond said, we totally agree with that. Having, if you are connecting this one, you don't have anything other side, so that also should be there. If anything you want to do in the future. So right now, we request to have a small gate where you can have, you can have in the future when you have a broad plan that connecting all the subdivisions, you have a space to do that. That's the right of way for the city anyway. So I just request that. And other point is, I heard that, Russell City is taking $50,000 for left-only lane. I request that, at least the Russell City ends somewhere in the Spring Lane, right? From Rucker, from the house intersection, to the east, the Russell City ends at Spring Lane, I guess. That's where, ends the Russell City limit. So can we have, I think we have a left-only lane from house intersection to the Crabapple Enclave. We have already left lane. From there to the Russell City limit, can we have a left lane so that we are going to get 100 more vehicles in next 2 to 3 years when Astonwood's property builds. So we'll have a more safety there. When you have that short distance of left lane. So I'm asking, is that a possibility that, we can have a timeline next 1 year or 2 year, at least that part of the, city limit, we can have a left lane?
I'm not in position to I don't think I or the council in a position to tell you when the project would be done. It's dependent upon whether the Transportation Investment Act is improved, which would provide for funding. It's conditioned upon other projects within the city. And priorities of those projects. So when we look at projects, we have to look citywide about what are the most pressing projects, and we consider those as a group. This project, this Rucker Road project, was high on the list. It was part of our. Before we had a Transportation Investment Act, we had the staffs of Roswell, Alpharetta, Johns Creek, Sandy Springs, and Mountain Park all get together, come up with a project list. Rucker Road was on that project list. It's a higher priority. But to really do the project right, it's a $20 million project and beyond the scope of just the city of Roswell. So it's a matter of trying to coordinate all these cities together. So it is not something we don't recognize as a need, but it's a recognition that we don't currently have the funding and we need funding to do this. And it's a regional road. It's not just a city road.
So you're saying that we cannot have just for the Roswell limit left-only lane?
I'm not telling you that you can or cannot. It would be the question about what road improvements should be done is really something I would defer to recommendations from our transportation staff. And as far as their recommendations of what should be done, then the next question is the availability of funding. And that availability of funding is right now, the first opportunity for funding would be this Transportation Investment Act.
I'm seeing $20 million and, gathering 3 different cities, Milton and Alfred and Roswell. It's a big deal, basically. So I'm just saying, at least until the Roswell city limit, we can have a, lane, which he said $150,000. I'm guessing already, Roswell city is getting $50,000 from the Astonwoods. So another, maybe $1,000. So we can have that short distance left lane, which will help us, having 100 more cars on the road, which will help us from Rucker to the, Roswell City proper at least.
I encourage your neighborhood to come next time we consider transportation projects and to continue that request, because that would be considered by the council and which items are priority. They consider public support, they consider recommendations of staff, they consider availability of funding, and I do appreciate your being an advocate for that improvement.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
Any other comments from the floor? I see no hands up. Any rebuttal? Anything to add? I've got some things I want to ask y'all about. I've got some more requests by the council. You're not through this system yet, but I think they're not something you cannot afford to do. Before you begin, let me start with my request, and let me see if council agrees with me. There was and a good point was made by the neighbors, and that is what are we doing to connect to the church? And our city attorney pointed me out that we've got a drainage easement and a landscape strip, which it's possible. Would y'all consider granting an easement across either one of those? If you'll look at the plat, not requiring that you make the improvement now, because we'd have to work with the church. But there are two possibilities for connections, and I'd like to get input from the folks who dreamed up this concept down to my left.
You.
If Mr. Townsend is pointing the drainage easement, which is between the two lots, is one possibility, and maybe the better possibility would be down in the landscape strip.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. DiPolito.
If you look at an aerial, there's probably a better location somewhere in between the two of those. If you look at where the church buildings are currently located, so it may be the type of thing that we need to leave to their discretion to find the appropriate location.
Councilmember Diamond, I'm asking for input from them, and if they have an idea now, it's discretion later. I know it's always easier to resolve it now if we can. Councilmember Diamond.
I'm with Mr. DiPolito. I think if we can, the Ashton Woods folks probably have a better knowledge of the slope of that. There's quite a steep slope on that property line going down to the church, so you may have a better feel for it. So we're certainly open to suggestions.
Yeah, I would prefer that we would put it on the southern landscape strip, close to the entrance of the subdivision. There's a couple of reasons, but most notably is that the tree protection that runs along the eastern border of this property obviously is meant to reduce the amount of impact to those trees. Any amount of pathway that we put in will likely damage critical root zones. To the effect that we are already going to be developing this area here, it would make more sense to us. Now, it's also in close proximity to an existing sidewalk, so one could argue that but I understand that we're down to really the finer points, and we're happy to do that. I just think that that's the issue as I see it here, is that there are some trees along all of this area that we'd love to leave alone to the extent that we can.
Yes, Councilmember Wynn.
Yes, sir. Is there a wall at the front? How does the front entrance look? Is there a wall at the entrance?
This detaining area is not the typical concrete structure that's going to be seen in the northern border. This is really, as it's said on the plan, an enhanced swale. What we will do is tie in a monument that is keeping in the character of the area. So that's the only modular structure that'll be there, unless I'm wrong, Sotir.
I guess I'm thinking of the view from the street.
Mm-hmm.
Would you see a wall, or would you see the swale in the path?
It's designed, we have enough room, it's designed to be a very gradual slope, not like a typical detention pond where it's a 2-to-1 and a 2-to-1 slope down, very steep. It's designed so that it could be completely sodded and kind of blend in versus being a detention pond on Rucker Road. So there will be a gradual slope up 4 feet above the road. And that slope could be backfilled up against the monument if need be, or the monument can be designed into it. I don't think the monument has been designed at this point, but to Mike's point, it's to be consistent with what you see up and down Rucker Road. And about the connectivity to the church, my only fear is if a decision's made right here and now, I think you need to take, to your point, a lot of things into consideration, topo, and it's not something we have looked at previously because it hadn't come up. So
can we condition it with staff and?
I think what you could do is you could possibly, you can have floating easements which are not defined in location and can be situated at a later time, and my guess is y'all are trying to make sure the easement is not across a developable lot.
Correct.
So if we could have, perhaps we could have a condition that you will grant us an easement to be determined at a later time across property which is other than a developable lot. Between that and the church property.
I think that would be fine.
Could we add to that if we could find a feasible location?
Well, we got to work. Yes,
Okay.
yeah, it has to be. Well, it would be up to the city then about a feasible location, and has to work with the church. But I think y'all can grant an easement in which the exact location is not determined, but it would not be on a developable lot.
Correct.
Mr. Hendricks, does that make sense? Yep, Councilmember DiPolito.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One other suggestion to get it further away from the road, from Rucker Road, is if it could go up around lots 15 or 16 where you have larger lots, and those are toward the back where you have fairly large lots. Maybe they could shift a little bit and we could squeeze a path in between there, and that way it would be pretty consistent with where the existing multi-use trails come in, or not the existing, but the other proposed multi-use trails coming in. Just a suggestion.
Councilmember Orleans.
I guess I was going to clarify what you're saying on the front of the detention pond on Rucker Road. You're not going to have some sort of decoration through there, a brick wall or something, blocking off the view of that detention pond? We've got several precedents around the city where whenever that detention pond has been right up to the road, there has been aesthetics added to it, shall we say, so that you're not looking at a detention pond right from the road. So can you clarify what the intent is to do up there?
Yeah, the structure that's in the front, and Sotir, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but is not, there's no concrete in it. It's an earthen berm, and so we'll have landscaping that is surrounding it. I imagine the street view is going to be consistent in the character of what you see there already. The only modular structure that we'll have that may serve as kind of a retaining wall, just given the grade change, is going to be the monument itself, the name that we give to the subdivision. To that end, we're going to obviously make it characteristic, but it's not, this isn't going to be a concrete pond that'll be stark contrast to everything that's going along the road. Does that answer the question?
So there's going to be a berm coming off Rucker, and it'll be fully landscaped, or?
It will be landscaped like an entry, like most subdivision entries, similar to Krabappel Registry's entry, and it will have a depression in there. Again, not like your typical detention pond, 10 feet deep, 2-to-1 slopes. It could potentially be all sodded because it's 4-to-1 slopes max is the way we currently have it designed. So you can sod that, you can maintain it. They can landscape it so it feels more like it's part of the entry feature and landscaping versus putting up a 6-foot high privacy fence with evergreens around it and make it look like a pond. They can make it kind of blend in to feel as though it were an entry feature. Does that answer your question?
I guess this, Brad, this would be something that maybe the DRB would take a look at, and staff can look at it. I mean, a couple examples. One, in fact, is over on Old Alabama Road, right where the connector comes in, not far from your offices. That was done. Another one is Brooks Green, right on Woodstock Road, where those detention ponds are right up front. So,
yeah, we actually purchased a neighborhood very close by that was a foreclosed neighborhood, Brandel Estates, and it was done that way. This is very different than that. The biggest thing to emphasize is that there isn't concrete in this particular pond. It's a topographical measure with an inlet. There's still water being carried there, and then obviously being drained right here. But to Sotir's point, you can actually sod this.
Okay,
just trying to address Councilmember Orland's issue. Is there any landscaping requirement between the road and this detention facility?
20 feet that's shown on the plat.
No, I mean, but is there any obligation to plant any trees or anything? I know, but a landscape strip, is that just grass or does it include something else?
It's not a landscaping plan with this application.
All right.
If there's any.
Are you proposing to put anything between the street and this other than grass?
Yes.
Well, perhaps you could craft a quick condition that would satisfy Councilmember Orleans as far as.
Be happy
It does show trees in here. Or something. It shows some landscaping.
There is a typical cryptomeria in Leland and the things that you would find that would be characteristic in the area. But typically, when we submit our construction drawings, we have to submit our landscape plan, and that's what's approved. But happy to do whatever works best.
Mr. Strickland, could we put a condition in there that there's to be, Mr. Townsend, I apologize again. You've been called worse.
Based on the plans that were submitted, which include.
Well, just say, consistent with the plans. It doesn't have to be identical because this is just sort of typical, but,
Right.
Consistent with these plans to be approved by staff. Landscaping between the detention pond and the road, consistent with these plans to be approved by staff.
Okay.
Mr. Orleans, would that meet your concern?
As long as somebody's just taking a little review and then a look at it to make
Would
sure.
that be okay with y'all to add that little condition?
I think that's fine.
All right. Other comments, Councilmember DiPolito.
Mr. Mayor, I was just curious, isn't that something that's typically reviewed by the Design Review Board?
No, sir. This is a single-family subdivision. Mr. Davidson, does Design Review Board do entry? Ms. Wakefield, does Design Review Board do entryways for subdivisions?
Only if they do entry features.
So this
Dealing
landscape.
with walls and monuments and signs, that goes to the design.
So I'm not sure this is this would not be a feature. Normally, this would not go to DRB, and
All right, so the
try to keep
landscape,
things simple.
so the landscape plan would not go to DRB.
Just the walls.
So we're just trying to keep things simple.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Over here, sorry, Mike. In our submittal, we actually have a landscape plan separate to the site plan that you're looking at now. And in it details not only the recompense that's required from the city, but it also, albeit it says typical landscaping, there is actual planning as part of that. But it's part of the larger plan.
Yeah,
that
so
was
if we just say
submitted
it's
to staff.
consistent with this.
Yeah, that's fine.
It's there.
It's there.
Okay, other questions? Anything else to add from the applicant, or any other questions? Did
Mr.
we
Mayor,
ever
if I-
resolve anything on this easements or trail connections to the church property? I know we've danced around this. Yes.
I had a question for staff. Is that appropriate to ask?
Yes,
them?
sir. Well, let's finish up and let's see if we've got any other questions, address the applicant, and then go to questions to staff. I know Councilmember Price had a lot of questions, but I wanted to get the applicant to finish their presentation before we leave this. Councilmember Price, is this a question for the applicant?
I know we've been working with, more recently, two different renderings, and one is the August one, and another one is the November one. If it were your, what would be your preference? The August one or the November one?
If we go with August 1, and there was a condition associated with August 1 about shared detention with Crabapple Registry, and I would serve that up to the city attorney to speak to the ability for council and mayor to be able to direct Crabapple Registry to do shared detention. I think that question, that evaluation comes with the August 1 plan.
And you all have worked towards an agreement, and the stumbling block for that agreement is what?
The access, as Anthony, Mr. Russell described it to you. Where they come down is a gate only. Remains a gate only between the properties, that the area remain grass. And with that, then we're together on shared detention. Without that, then from their okay standpoint, the shared detention falls out.
wonder if Crabapple Registry might be amenable to something such as an opening, and no pervious or impervious path, an opening such as in like an arbor.
No gate.
No gate.
So to answer the first question, it's my response would be whatever plan you want to approve would be the one I'd be in favor of.
Just your preference was the question.
Yeah, I think Anthony would find that funny too. No, I think that what we did here loud and clear was that the path was critical. I think the mayor's expression was it's important to me. So I don't know how to answer it. Frankly, I just don't. I don't know how we can. We could do either, but to Pete's point, if the condition were such, if the gavel rapped and it said, okay, the August plan is approved with the pedestrian access shown, it would really present a problem, because now on that plan there's shared detention that I now couldn't get, meaning that the registry would say that we're not going to honor that previous agreement. So that's what's troubling. Having an opening or a path that ends at the gate, at the fence, and then on the western side of the property line there being no path, that probably, I think, gets closer to what the registry would find is to be an acceptable compromise. But it's pretty clear they don't want the connectivity through what is become used as green space.
Other questions for the applicant? Thank you, sir.
Thank you all.
At this time, we'll entertain questions for staff. Councilmember Price, I believe you had a number of questions.
Really just one for Stu, if he's still here, yes. Just regarding, I know in some of our meetings we've had a lot of transportation personnel in attendance, but we haven't had Public Works people weigh in on the desirability, feasibility of the shared detention, because I'm not even sure if this most recent drawing that we've just seen is workable and has been completely vetted by Public Works as to the two detentions. Which would be preferable in your mind?
A single detention pond would be preferable. I think that was what I had stated previously. I haven't reviewed the specific plans that have evolved, so I can't comment on that. But it is, one of several good things. It's other things being equal, I'd rather have one pond there than two, and I think the applicant has said that as well. But if it's not feasible, if this proposed property installs a detention facility in accordance with the Blue Book, then they're fully in compliance. So we would have no authority to deny them on that basis. But a single pond would be preferable.
As far as we know, the November 1 plan is feasible and adequate?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Councilmember Nguyen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Asenbrack, I think Mr. Harmon did bring up some good points on the left turn lane. Is there a way that we can look at maybe some short-term, somehow or another, kind of help alleviate some of that concern that Crabapple Registry has? Is there a way that we can look at it, a short-term solution?
Many times, if there is enough asphalt out there, we can do what we just did for Mr. DiPolito today, as a matter of fact. He asked for us to look at Grimes Bridge and the fact that there was 2 yellow lines and people were confused about turning into back streets. So we ground that up and restriped it and turned it into a 2-way left turn lane. So go out there and take a look. I looked at it today. It looks great. Sometimes we have the ability to apportion certain parts of the asphalt. It may be we do things like, it should be a 12-foot left turn lane, but we make it a 10.5-foot left turn lane, and it's not ideal. I haven't looked at that in any detail, but we can look at that.
I would appreciate if you would look at it. I think that is a good question. I understand we don't want to spend, a whole lot of money on that since we're going to have that as part of our regional projects, but I still think that maybe there's something that, because your staff is so innovative and so creative, that they might be able to come up with something that would help at least alleviate some of the concerns that Crab Apple Registry has, and I would appreciate if you would just look at it for us.
There's some taper lengths and things that we have to look at on both sides, sight distances, those sorts of things, but yes, ma'am, I'd be happy to look at that. And I can't tell you right off the top of my head if that's feasible or not, but we'll be happy to look at it.
As long as you look at it, I appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Eichelhardt.
Mr. Eisenbrecht, please don't go too far. I've been trying to stay out of the confusion and let things go as quickly as possible, but you and I have talked about this twice, about exactly this, what she just said, about turning into Crab Apple Registry and into this new one, and whether or not that can be done. And you've even gone out and looked and know there's a pole on this side, and we maybe have to take out part of the front of the existing subdivisions to make that happen. But you've looked at this.
Well, the issue is that there's curb and gutter on both sides. I mean, a lot of times we look at whether if it's what we call a rural section, which doesn't have the curb and gutter, can we, make some changes? I don't think it's feasible, but I offered to look at it, and I hadn't thought about the idea of maybe squeezing the lanes together and maybe trying to squeeze in something without taking out the curb and gutter, without moving the utilities. I mean, it's unfortunate in this business that there seems to be like this cascading thing where you just think, if I could just get a little thing, but then one thing gets in the way and you got to move it, and there's just a domino effect of other things that don't do it. I'm not. The problem with Crab Apple Registry is that they're already there and they've already established their front entrance, if you will, and we've only got such a narrow corridor on just right down basically where the Ashton Woods property is. The curb and gutter ends, and there is an opportunity to kind of widen that out a little bit. But I mean,
right. Well, then my point, I guess, and the reason I had to jump in is because we've looked at a lot of this, and to say, well, we're going to look at it and then let it go, bothers me, because we've already started to do that and said, well, it's going to probably cost about $150 as a guess on that.
Well, that's to do it right. That's to do the whole thing. That's to design it for the required taper lengths on both sides. Just get the center line adjusted, figure out where the curbs need to be, and then apply that, overlay that over what's there now. And if we have to move the curb and gutter out, say 6 to 8 feet, in order to add that turn lane, and it almost always triggers a utility relocation, then we have to go through that whole process. There might be a water lines down there. There could be other utilities underground that we have to move. I mean, not everything on the surface is just sort of as it appears. I'm not optimistic, but I was asked to look at it. I will move heaven and earth to do whatever we can to get that thing in as quick as we can. But if there's a way to do it, say for the $50,000, let's say we use that money to make some modest curb line realignments and to do some things. But
that's what baffles me. I swear I've asked that question of you at least twice in 2 separate meetings, almost exact words.
I apologize if I didn't give you the clear answer.
I totally agree with Mr. Hartman that we're setting things up here that already are a problem for them to get in and out of their neighborhood, and why we think it's going to be better for the next one until however long it takes to fix this road. And even if this thing passes in July, which is not certain, it's going to be a long time before that thing is built.
That's a very valid point. That's true.
We've spent a lot of money to fix that intersection before it, yet we're going to let one car block everything out of that intersection, and we don't seem to care whether it's safe or not. I agree with him that I think that is a safety issue, but it's also the flow issue that we're not seem to be concerned about.
Well, the truth of the matter is, Crab Apple Registry.
Have you think after the comment that all it's going to be good because we're going to look at it and now it's going to be better? That's what bothered me. So sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Eisenbrecht. Other questions? The staff. Any comments before we entertain a motion? Councilmember Price, you're going to be making the motion, so I want to see if any other council members have a comment before you make your motion. I see no hands up, so Councilmember Price, Councilmember DiPolito.
I'll make a couple of comments. I did speak with Mr. Russell the other day, and I told him that my preference on this path was essentially what I had recommended at the last council meeting, that we move the path to the north so we preserve their green space and that they figure out a way to get a path in there, preserve their green space, and then also figure out a way to do shared detention with Ashton Woods, because to me that's the ultimate win-win. I know they don't like the idea of having a pervious path, but if it's off of the green space, it enables them to have shared detention. That would help them defer maintenance for their subdivision for the long term. It seems like it gets the path we're looking for. It reduces the ongoing maintenance costs to the subdivision. It helps Ashton Woods get a shared detention, which is good for the city as well. So there just seems to be a lot of good reasons to do that, other than the fact that that would be a pervious path. So those are my thoughts.
I agree with you, but Ashton Woods has not.
I don't believe they have an issue with that.
Well,
Crabapple Registry, I'm sorry, it was Crabapple Registry. They have to concur with this because we cannot do it without their concurrence, as I understand.
Right.
So I agree with you entirely. Other comments before we take a vote? We entertain a motion. Councilman Eichelhardt.
Well, and related to that too, I guess I try not to just keep talking and say nothing, but I've said exactly the same thing that you did twice about this connection and the pond. That if we can figure out a way to make that walkway, path, whatever the heck we want to call it, north of those trees, because if you do shared detention, you have more space now, kind of in between all the properties. You can move the whole thing up, have the path that's totally out of the current grass area, and I think that's what you're saying, right? And I know you and I have said that twice now, at least in 2 previous meetings. So why people aren't hearing that?
They rejected it.
But I don't know. Maybe that's
They've rejected it in the past.
Would that be true though? If that path were totally north of where your
we'll give the neighborhood one more opportunity to respond to the comments of Mr. Eichelhardt and Mr. DiPolito. Would it make? They are suggesting the path be located north of the hydrant. Would that make any difference?
No, it's not the hydrant. It's all the trees entirely. Basically, where the fence is now for the current
if you'll show us,
pond.
I think perhaps just to clarify it, Mr. Eichelhardt, if you could get Mr. Strickland to show you where you were suggesting. Mr. Townsend.
Mr. Townsend's going to.
Once I make a mistake, I'm consistent. Mr. Townsend. If Mr. Eichelhardt, if you could show Mr. Townsend where you're suggesting.
Well, there's a line of trees north of the grass area, and it's probably in that.
This is showing the lawn limits. This line here.
Okay, so and the guys from Crabapple Registry can help with that, but it's probably somewhere around there. There's a line of trees, and then there behind that, north of that, there's a fence that obviously protects the detention pond. Hey, there you go. If you put that path in that white spot area.
There's the fence. This is the landscaped area. This is showing the lawn.
And if you do a joint detention, in theory, I would guess, you can actually move that detention area over a little bit more into that other spot, which allows you to move that fence up 10 feet, 20 feet, whatever that amount is, then gives you a path along wherever that white spot is right there.
The trouble you're running into is you're blurring the line between where the public right-of-way is at and where the common detention area for Crabapple Registry is at. And without their written consent to do that, you have no deal.
And I guess that's what I'm asking. Would they be willing to do that? And if not, then we go back to where we were. But I'm trying to agree with Mr. DiPolito that let's figure out something that works for everybody.
Has the position of Crabapple Registry changed at all after hearing this discussion? We're seeing a negative, Councilman Eichelhardt.
All right.
We appreciate your efforts. All right, further comments before we entertain a motion. Councilman Orleans.
Mr. Herman's point about the left turn lane, if we went back to the original site plan and we had both subdivisions entering the same place at Crabapple Registry, we could concentrate on one left turn lane to cover two subdivisions instead of having to put two left turn lanes in to cover two subdivisions. So that might be another avenue as well to help solve the safety problem.
Any other comments? I see no comments. Councilman Price, if you have a motion, we'll entertain it now. Any comments before that motion? You're welcome.
Just a couple of comments. Again, we've worked long and hard, and it seems like it's been a moving target the whole time. I think
it's an improving target. We're getting better all the time.
I'm not sure, but anyway, I think the shared detention seems to be a relatively common goal. I think the connectivity issue is it's a feel good to some people, but it's really impractical and foolish, frankly. The green space that I think most of us have visited is not a huge space, but it's a wonderful space, which would be marred by any kind of path, street, what have you. Although it's technically owned by the city, it has been maintained by the Crabapple Registry Homeowners Association and I guess the adjacent neighbors mostly for some time now, and I'm not sure what reason we would want to suddenly pick up that maintenance. That also seems foolish. The path location, I know we've explored when I went out to visit having it on the other side of the trees, and that was pretty much rejected. There is no curb cut, so any kind of road, what have you, is I haven't heard any discussion that we would make a curb cut. I noticed in the newest staff recommendations, number 7 is omitted, which is not requiring a right-of-way from the owner-developer. So what happens is now we would have right-of-way in Crabapple Registry, and we would not have a right-of-way in Ashton Woods. And I know we've also explored relinquishing the right-of-way on the Crabapple Registry side, which was met with disapproval in legal sense that we'd have to sell it at fair market value, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I think it still is feasible because we've got adjacent owners are motivated. Ashton Woods is certainly motivated, and Crabapple Registry owns that in common. So I'm not sure that those are irreconcilable, but the biggest sticking point, I guess, is whether or not Crabapple Registry is willing to have an opening in the gate if perhaps there was no actual path that would allow some connectivity in terms of kids going back and forth, bikes to go back and forth, but there would be no application of any foreign substance on the grass.
He's not on the record.
If you'll come forward to the microphone, we want to get this on the record. And if you have a position that you'd like to support, you may state it.
I'm sorry, I should have come up.
That's all right.
Absolutely, we are not married to the idea that there be a gate there. We're just most concerned that there not be a trail there. And so if it would please the council to have some type of opening in the fence so that it is very easily discernible that it is a passageway to be used by the public, that is fine with us. We are happy to continue to maintain that green space, to keep it as nice as we do today. We just see the trail as marring, Councilmember Price, as you say, that piece of land. I see a lot of skint knees on our kids' part when they're out there kicking a soccer ball around, when they fall on that gravel and so forth. I have the support of my neighbors. We wholeheartedly support some type of connectivity as long as we don't put down some type of surface. And so if there were an opening in the fence with a designated right-of-way for the city between the two pieces of land, then our HOA would have to go through the process to amend our covenants. I've gotten support from our homeowners that they will support that. If for some reason we do not, then absolutely the city has every right to put down that trail if we do not reach that conclusion for the shared detention. So that's what we would ask, is that you allow the connectivity without the trail, and we will support the shared detention. Thank you.
So, do you have the authority to enter into an agreement with Ashton Woods for the shared detention at this time?
As the HOA president, I would have the authority to agree to that, I believe, but I don't have our attorney here with us. So, but I mean, I got the latest draft of the agreement from the attorney today. That's the intention. We've not signed anything. I would have to get the advice of the attorney if I can sign that, when I can sign that. The agreement couldn't take effect without 67% approval of our homeowners. I've asked all of our homeowners to give me an indication of how they would approve. I've not received anyone that wrote back negatively that they would not approve to support this shared detention if no trail is built. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
We do.
Yes, sir. Ms. Hendricks would like to comment. I apologize for interrupting.
We need, I think, to have a backup comment in the conditions that within X period of time, if there has not been able to be an agreement reached, then we default to the November 1 plan, which shows the connectivity and it shows the detention singularly on the Ashton Woods property.
Good point, Ms. Hendricks. And once we have a motion with conditions and a second, I will ask for your comments on those conditions. So listen carefully to these conditions. If there's anything that you can add to help clarifying, we're open to trying to get something that works. So if you'll pay attention to the motion and the conditions and the second, we'll ask to hear from you again. So, do we have a motion?
We do. I'd like to move the plan of the applicant be approved according to the, number one, according to the site plan of August 1, 2011. Number two, approve the, is it a variance or for whether it's the width? Concurrent variance, yeah, the lot width from 80 to 60 feet. Number three is the paragraph regarding the transportation agreement as written prior to the issue.
Is that the $50,000?
Yes, the building permit, $50,000, et cetera, all that's on the memo from Brad Townsend on October 5th. Number four, that a shared detention pond is that we understand that there will be a shared detention pond between the two subdivisions. Should this agreement not be forthcoming, we would revert to within 30 days.
When you talk about, let's try to put a couple of packages. There's a shared detention pond with what would be the condition with the trail with the shared detention pond, because that was important to the neighborhood.
We're coming to that.
I know. Before you get to the if we don't have a shared detention pond, let's try to get to the Plan A or Plan B. Plan B.
May I finish my motion?
Yes.
Thank you. Shared detention pond. Should an agreement not be reached with Crab Apple Registry to have a shared detention pond within 30 days, then the applicant reserves the right to pursue the November 1st site plan.
And just for clarification, the November 1st site plan is the one which shows, is that the one that shows the
That shows the separate detention
pond?
pond, right. Okay. Number 5, 20 foot of landscape strip along Rucker Road, similar to the Crabapple Registry subdivision, to be maintained as a common area by a mandatory homeowners association and with landscape modifications as described earlier this evening with a view towards connectivity. Number 6 is the same as we had. The plat shall indicate no access easement for the 2 lots along Rucker Road. Number 7, that we work towards a floating easement to a lot in the eastern portion of the property. And that whatever number we're at, an easement, or not an easement, excuse me, an arbor or other opening in the fence will be constructed by the applicant, as agreed to by Crabapple Registry. Or if agreed to by Crabapple Registry.
All right, so whether or not Crabapple Registry agrees to the shared detention pond, there would be no pervious trail.
Correct.
No requirement under either circumstances for a trail.
Correct.
Under your motion. And now the floating easement, we need more direction on that.
I don't know. I thought that was a floating discussion, and I didn't understand it either.
It could be framed in this way, is that there would be an easement, and there are lots of ways to frame it, but what I had suggested, an easement between the church property and the Ashton Woods property across the landscape strip on the front of the property, the exact location to be determined by the city at a future date, and to be no more than 10 feet in width.
But that could be in conjunction with the detention pond at Rucker Road, correct?
Well, it would be in that landscape area. It's in the same area as the detention pond. That's one possibility. The council had suggested some other ones. I think you need to be more specific than just to say easement to be worked out. So you need to pick one.
Yeah, I think I actually referred to that earlier in the landscaping modifications with the view towards connectivity. I think the floating easement, we can just skip that. Sorry, I brought it up.
All right, does the council have any questions about the motion? Councilmember Wynn, this isn't an amendment, it's just a clarification question.
Yes, sir. Councilmember Price, could you read number 8 again for me, please?
What was number 8?
Arbor or opening?
Oh, yes, that the applicant construct an opening in the fence as allowed and provided by. Well, actually, it's on our property, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, just that they would construct the arbor and or opening in a fence on the city property.
But would it be enough to simply say an opening? There's to be an unobstructed opening 10 feet in width.
Perfect. I'd like to have the word finished, so that way it's just not punching a hole through the fence.
Well,
maybe a finished opening or something to that effect.
Well, I would just envision there's a post on either side of the 10 feet and not this requirement for some funky arbor.
Yeah. We like arbors.
Sorry.
Another
I
clarification.
like arbors too, but
another clarification on number 4. On the shared detention, if no agreement is reached within 30 days, then we revert to the site plan of 11/1/2011. Councilwoman Price, that does still show that pervious surface trail. Is that still part? And you're saying that if it reverts, that the trail would then be part of the site plan?
I think that is the risk that Crab Apple Registry takes by not agreeing.
Okay, I just need clarification. Thank you.
I appreciate that clarification. That makes it clearer to me. Now, just for, there was a discussion, are you saying 8 would now being that there would be an opening 10 feet in width with the, in the fence?
With an arch. Doesn't have to have an arch, but it would be so lovely.
Well, we'll leave that to the discretion, but we want a 10-foot wide opening in the, who owns the fence?
Well, it's on city property.
It was placed by the developer.
But it's on our property, so we own the fence, so they would have to, they would be given the responsibility of opening up a 10-foot wide in the location where it shows this purple line.
Correct.
Is that fair? Is that what you want?
Yes, I think the exact location of it certainly could be even in Crab Apple Registry's location, but if they don't find a better location, it would certainly be on the city's property.
Mr. David has pointed out that there's a confusion about plans. The plan that Mr. Davidson has up on the screen is, which plan is that?
That's the November 1st.
That's the November 1st plan is the plan that it reverts to if there's no agreement.
That's
no
my
agreement.
clarification from Councilwoman Price, that the if no agreement, then we do revert back to the plan that's up on the screen right now.
Now, let me ask this question, and this is a clarification. Councilmember Price is suggesting that the pervious trail on the city right-of-way on the Crab Apple Registry side not be constructed.
That's how come I wanted clarification, and what I'm hearing is that we will revert back to this plan as shown. And
It would be constructed if there's no shared detention
that's
pond.
what I'm hearing from Councilwoman.
But if there is a
Price.
shared detention pond, they would not have to construct that.
That's what I'm hearing.
Right now, is it fair, I'm trying to look at the trail, the pervious surface trail from the cul-de-sac to the property line, would that be required in either instance?
My understanding is yes, sir. I'm assuming, Councilwoman Price, that it would still be a pervious surface from the cul-de-sac to the property line on Ashton Woods side?
You mean with the August 1 plan?
Yes.
No path.
No path at all. Okay.
On either side?
On either side.
Well, I'm not sure we've even required in any of our stipulations, conditions, that Ashton Woods provide a path. I don't see that anywhere.
This is the August 1st plan that shows the common detention, but does not show any pathway connecting.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
So we either going to have a sort of a opening with grass on either side, or an opening with a shared detention pond, or if there's no shared detention pond, it would be a pervious trail connecting the two, as shown by that plan. Correct. I think I understand the motion. Does the rest of the council understand? Councilmember Diamond?
I guess my question is more of a legal, my understanding is all these places were put in place for this connectivity. And if we do absolutely no connectivity, what does that bode for the next one, which is in the same neighborhood, when that comes up?
That'll be up to council.
You're so helpful.
That will be up to council.
I have a question about the easement over to the church. I'm still unclear as to, are we requiring at least a 10-foot easement for a multi-use trail, or what is part of this motion?
What I had proposed and what I understood is there would be a 10-foot width trail between the Ashton Woods Street and the church property across the landscape strip to the front of the property. The exact location to be determined later, but we'd have to be within the landscape strip.
For the record, my preference would be for it to be further north, so it's more consistent with the other opening at lots 15 and 16.
That would have to be an amendment to the motion. The motion would not encompass that.
So we're going to do away with the landscape strip?
No. The motion, as I understand it, it's not my motion. I'm just trying to say, as I understand the motion.
I thought you made it.
No, I suggested some wording for it.
Okay.
Where it goes, I think, is subject to play. There is it's called a 20-foot landscape strip, but it's really wider than that. It includes the detention pond, the landscape strip, everything between Rucker Road and Lot 28. Somewhere between Rucker Road and Lot 28, there would be a 10-foot wide easement, the location to be determined later by the city. Under her motion, if the council wishes to widen the scope of where that could go, that would require an amendment to the motion. So that we have a motion.
Let me know when it's time to make an amendment.
We first have to get a second. We have a motion now, and I just want to make sure everybody understood the motion because it was drafted on the fly and complex. I wanted to make sure Councilman Orleans and does staff understand the motion? That should be the first question. Councilman Orleans, do you understand the motion?
Yeah, my question is, how can you put in there an easement between Rucker Road and Lot 28 to be determined later when all the lots will be divided and put in? How can you even put that in there?
Well, it would not be between. It would not be on a lot of record. It would be within that area, which includes the detention pond and the 20-foot landscape strip. So it would be within that area, more than likely within that 20-foot landscape strip.
Staff would recommend that the easement be shown as part of the preliminary plat. That way it is approved and understood where the location will be at the beginning.
And we can revise the site plan to show the easement.
Right.
I just know that you've got to have the church working with you to make this happen.
Right.
So it's legally possible, and it would have to be within that location. Other questions? Councilmember Eichelhardt.
Well, I guess it's a much of comment since we're trying to decide whether we can make a motion, but put in a path that's only no more than 40 feet away from the sidewalk is silly. I mean, that's just, I understand the connectivity idea, but that's just stupid. But that's just doing it for the sake of saying we're doing it. That really makes no sense.
You may have the option to vote on an amendment after if we get a second.
Okay.
And I appreciate your point of view. Councilmember Price.
I'd like to withdraw that portion of the motion so that if it's deemed amendable, we can put it in there, but just to remove that at this time.
That's condition number 7?
I don't know if it was 7 or 8, I don't remember.
It was number 7 that dealt with it.
So the floating easement is not part of the motion?
Correct.
There's no reference to it at all? No easement between the church and the road? All right, we have does everyone understand the motion? Yes, do you have a question?
One more question. With respect to the property on the Ashton Woods side in the common area, right now there's a lot of trees there. Is there a goal to have some sort of a clearing so that this is a walkway, or is it just a opening in the fence and it just goes into the woods?
My goal would be to have a place that you could walk across the grass if that's the wisdom of this council to leave it in grass. I would rather have a pervious surface trail.
Just
if there's
figure out what the motion is.
If there's no trail and it's just grass, whatever, you just walk between the trees, Rich. We're not paving it, from what I understand.
So why have an opening?
The opening's only in the fence, so that people can get from one side to the other. From what
I've walked between the trees.
That's what I understand the motion to be.
Okay. And the council will have to make their determination whether to support. We have a motion. Do we have a second? Do we have a second to the motion? All right, if staff could sort of give us their interpretation of their motion, we would appreciate it. We're struggling.
Condition number 1 deals with the development in accordance to the plans dated August 1st. The August 1st plans have a shared detention with no pathway connecting between the properties. Condition number 2 controls that there be no street connectivity. No. Condition number 2 dealt with the approval of the minimum lot width variance from 80 feet to 60 feet. Condition number 3 dealt with the $50,000 received in lieu of the left turn lane. Condition number 4 dealt with the Crabapple Registry existing stormwater management facility having an agreement reached within 30 days between the two parties. If no agreement is reached, it reverts to the November 1st plan that includes a trail connection into the Crabapple Registry. Number 5 requires the 20-foot landscape strip adjacent to Rucker. Number 6 requires that the plat have a no-access easement along Rucker. Number 7, trail easement to the church has been removed. That is not part of the main motion. Number 8 requires an arbor or other such opening within the fence located within the public right-of-way. Those are our understandings at this time.
That'd be a 10-foot wide opening.
10-foot wide opening.
Mr. Hendricks, you've been patient. Do you understand the motion, and do you have any comments or suggestions?
I do, and I would suggest that the time frame for securing that approval from Crabapple Registry for the shared detention be 45 days and not 30 days. In talking with Mr. Russell, he seemed to say he's got a mail-out procedure that he has to go through, and that he would be more comfortable with it being 45 days and not 30. Otherwise, we hear what you say, and we hope that you come to a good decision on the one condition that has been pulled out for further discussion and debate, I guess.
I understand that.
I'll accept that change to the
All right, Ms.
deadline.
Lawrence, now that we have a clarification of the motion, do we have a second?
Well, I seconded it for discussion, sure.
We have a motion.
Please turn on your microphone.
We have a motion and a second. I think Mr. DiPolito suggested he might wish to make an amendment.
I would like
We'll
to
consider any amendments, and then we'll have discussion.
Yes, I would like to add an easement for a 10-foot multi-use trail going from the Ashton Woods property to the church property for future use if the church is not amenable to that right now, but at a location to be determined and agreed upon by staff, preferably toward the cul-de-sac.
But here's the question. Would it, if it's an easement, it would be crossing one of the developable lots. Is it going to create a problem with one of those developable lots?
Yes.
That's my concern. How do we make that fit?
Well, that's why I was suggesting if it goes north of lot 16, then those could be adjusted slightly.
Well, I guess the biggest concern that staff would probably have is the church property is not developed in that area of their northern property at all. Putting the trail is going to stop at Ashton Woods property line unless the church picks up anything on their property. They don't have any development up in that area. I mean, it's just heavily treed. This area on the Ashton Woods property is also heavily treed in a tree save area. So you're going to get into critical root zones and specimen trees and things of that nature.
Let me try to get creative here, which is dangerous.
Yes, sir.
Just a thought. If we moved lot 28 into that 20-foot landscape strip and opened up more room with that 20-foot drainage easement between lot 21 and 22, would that create an opportunity? Rich, do you see what I'm talking about?
I think
there's an opportunity to shift the lot lines. That's what I'm saying, is you essentially put it in a place that makes sense, but it's hard to tell from the information that we have tonight.
Well, we can talk about an easement which is undesignated, but if you start talking about moving lots lines, I think we have to designate those tonight. I don't think we can shift these lot lines.
Jer.
Yes, Councilman Orleans.
I mean, it's hard to project the lots where they're at versus a church building not showing on the plot, but trying to estimate it, and where you're talking about that easement will run right into the back of a building in the church or awful close and not create much access. That was the only concern I had about in the middle of that property there.
Well, if it's run straight across, as I'm proposing, it would actually come to a clearing on the church property.
Did you got an aerial of that?
Yeah, it's in the book.
See if you can find the aerial of that, which you should.
If you're looking between lots 21 and 22, you're probably dealing with this location of the property.
Correct. Right.
Brad, would you point to where 16 and 17 is? It's further north.
16 and 17.
It should line up with
Probably
where.
going to be up in here.
Actually, it'd be further south of there. It would line up with where the other trail extension is.
Lining up down here.
Right.
So are you proposing that we shift 17 through 28 south into that 20-foot landscape strip and open up a little, maybe a 10 or 20-foot strip between 16 and 17?
Or shift 16 north and just adjust those ones in the corner?
Well, first of all, before we get that question, is that practical? I mean, I don't know if we can shift 16 north. I don't know if that works. Well, my concern is that the developer needs to know where his lot lines are when this plat is recorded, and to say we're feasible doesn't really get us there.
Rich, I thought we were friends. No, my concern really is that we've come this far to get to 28 lots, and it's taken quite an undertaking to get there, and I would hate, Rich, to lose that now at what I think is kind of a decision on the fly and then miss something. My practical concern is I really can't say it enough other than just to say I would not want a path between two houses in the middle of the subdivision. I think it hurts our marketability. Any owner is probably going to look at that, but my bigger concern is that if in doing so we end up reducing the land mass in such a way to make it impossible for us to get to 28 lots, that'd be a pretty bad day. And I think the only way I can see to do it is to Councilman Eigelhardt's point, is to put it to the south, but then we're so close to a sidewalk, ought we not just use the sidewalk? But if the path is critical, then I think we put it in, but that'd be the place I'd want to earmark it. Is that fair?
That's fair.
Do you wish to make a motion, Councilmember DiPolito?
An amendment? I will drop my amendment.
Are there any other amendments that the council wish to consider? I would like the council to consider an amendment to require at least an open area between this opening for the between Ashton Woods and Crabapple Registry, so I understand we don't want the people to have to walk between the woods, but I like to sort of a clear way to say, even if it's not a pervious surface, that if it's a 10-foot wide walkway, I'd like to see a walkway between these cul-de-sacs, even if we didn't put a surface on it, so that it becomes at least visible as a pathway. So if I would like the council members to consider that as an amendment. Because right now, if they approve that shared detention pond, I don't really get away from that, a clear way from that cul-de-sac over to the opening. No, that's the opening, but between the opening and the cul-de-sac, I thought I understood that you have to get through some woods or something. I mean,
would we need an easement as well?
We need an easement, but I'd like an easement and also an easement, and even if he doesn't put in a trail, at least a clearing so that people see a clearance through there. I can't make that motion, but I wish a council member would.
All right, I'll propose a different amendment. That we provide for an easement with a 10-foot trail, pervious trail, on the natural trail on the Ashton Woods side to get to the cul-de-sac and then to the opening in Crabapple Registry.
Would that be in the location where that purple line is on that drawing?
Correct.
Right, do you understand that?
I'm going to clarify it so we do understand it.
Yes, please do.
This is the August 5th plan that approves the common detention area. It does not have a connection. This is all on Ashton Woods. 8 would have a arbor or opening in this location. What the Councilman DiPolito's would have a designated, did you call it a natural?
Yes. A natural trail.
Natural trail.
Yeah, it'd be 10-foot wide.
In this jungle.
With a natural surface.
Okay.
Mr. DiPolito, is that acceptable?
We probably ought to define what a natural surface is.
Grass.
Well, if it's under trees, it's leaves. If it's in the open, it's grass.
Wood mulch. Wood mulch.
Appropriate surface.
Okay.
Is that a motion?
That's an amendment.
That's a motion to amend.
Yes.
We have a motion to amend. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Diamond. All right, we now have a motion and we have an amendment. We're now open for comment before we vote. We're going to vote on the amendment first and then on the motion. Councilmember Eichelhardt.
Are those trees, or if there are trees there, would there be trees there? I guess are we talking about taking out a bunch of trees in order to create this? It seems to.
Let's ask the applicant what would be required if we put in a easement there and grass or mulch or leaf surface.
I think the path that Richie proposed is fine. It was something that we had contemplated. I probably should have explained that better. So the simple answer is yes. We had intended on our side of the property to put a path, and it was in that location that Brad drew.
And the question was, is that going to require removal of any large trees?
I don't think so. Without having all the critical root zones measured, but I think the type of path we're talking about, you could meander it in such a way so it shouldn't damage it.
Okay, thanks.
Other questions or comments? All right, all in favor of the amendment to the motion, raise their hands. That is unanimous. On the motion itself, all in favor of the motion? That is unanimous. We're taking a break. I would like to thank the neighborhood and the applicant for their work and their patience. Y'all have been a good group to work with, and I hope we have something that works out for everybody. And I wish the developer all the luck in the world. You're inspiring. for your courage and your determination and persistence. This meeting? Why, thank you so much. I am just, re-energized here. I can ride my mountain bike from neighborhood to neighborhood now, even if I can't take my road bike between them. Ms. Price, if you'll call the next agenda item, please. I think Councilman Orleans may have to leave, or he may have left already. He hasn't gone yet.
The next item is RZ 11-10, text amendment to Section 10 of the zoning ordinance to include regulations for donation bins in the city of Roswell. This is the second reading. Mr. Townsend.
Yes, this is a text amendment to the zoning ordinance, which we will include donation bins in Section 10.16.1. We have a definition of donation bins, driveways. We have a permit requirement, which clarifies that the donation bins are being placed on private property and will require an annual permit. We have application requirements as well as renewal. We also have location and placement criteria. The one change that was made at first reading was in letter G of that section. We were discussing how many donation bins to allow on a parcel or location. Staff has included language that would allow a total of 3 donation bins. During our research, most of the donation bins are either books or clothing. This then allows a third type of use or donation that we are unaware of at this time at that particular location. So those are was a change from the first reading. We require them to be certified with the state. They need to be properly located so they are visible from the street, and proper screening. We require that they be such distance away from crosswalks as well as fire hydrants. This is the second reading of this proposed ordinance. Staff would recommend approval of this at second reading.
Mr. Davidson, if you'd read the ordinance, please.
Thank you. This is an ordinance to amend the zoning ordinance of the City of Roswell, Georgia regarding donation bins. Now, therefore, to accomplish the foregoing, the mayor and council of the City of Roswell, pursuant to their authority, do hereby adopt the following ordinance. The zoning ordinance of the City of Roswell, Chapter 10, Specific Use Requirements, is hereby amended to add Section 10.16.1, Donation Bins, to read as follows. Text of which is incorporated herein by reference, and if approved, this will be the second reading.
First, I'd like to open up for public comment before we entertain a motion. Does anyone wish to speak? If you'd give us your name and address, please, you're free to speak.
Name is Edward A. Zito, 2914 Lenox Road, number 13, Atlanta 30324. I'm a board member with American Kidney Services, and primarily just here to answer any questions last-minute questions that may come up. I think what you just mentioned.
Did you have any questions about the ordinance or comments?
No. I just wanted to make myself available to answer any questions for you.
All right. Councilmember Eichelhart.
I feel like I have to ask you a question since you sat here through the last 3+ hours. You got to get something for it. Because I know you had expressed, or I thought you had expressed concerns previously about where we were. Are you no longer have concerns?
About
what is being proposed?
Not really. It seems like we've covered that. We want to make sure that anybody trying to put a donation bin is a true charity registered with the Secretary of State. The questions that we were talking about screening, I think were addressed last time. That we're not talking about putting a fence around it, but maybe it's in the a middle part of the shopping center or back or something like that. That they should have, and it's in there, name and address, contact number. So those things are covered, and I think we're good with everything else.
Okay, great, thanks.
Other questions?
Thank you, sir. Does anyone else wish to comment? Do we have a motion?
I have one concern on item F, when it says as determined by staff on a case-by-case basis. So presumably, someone could be denied and we might not ever know. Is that the case?
Usually when something gets denied by staff, it surely heads upstairs real quick. So I'm sure you find out. But that would be the case.
Well, if they are denied by staff,
there's usually a reason.
They have an option to
staff would
call a council member or another elected official and say...
Staff would work with them to try to remedy why they denied it in any case.
Other questions? Do we have a motion?
Move to approve RZ 11-10.
That would be for the motion to approve the second reading.
Second reading, yes.
Second by Councilman Orleans. Further discussion? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously. Great job with your presentation.
The next item is approval of a resolution to establish a fee related to processing an application for a donation bin.
As part of taking in the application, staff would request a nominal $25 fee including that application. This has to be adopted by resolution.
And is that an annual fee?
Yes. We're probably going to treat it similar to signage.
Okay.
Any questions? Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Do we have a second? Second. We'll take public comments now.
Janet Russell, just a quick comment or question. $25 annual fee. There will be no exemptions for anybody or any group, correct? Including churches, because churches are currently exempt from signage fees. And I don't want anybody to put anything out that they don't pay like everybody else.
Mr. Davidson.
Please make that an amendment or whatever you're doing to this thing.
Mr. Davidson, as currently proposed, would the staff or elected officials have the option to waive the fee?
No, they wouldn't. Not as written.
Good.
Any other questions or comments from the floor? Any further discussion by council? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously.
The next item, RZ 11-11, text amendment to amend the sign ordinance regarding the Find It All Roswell campaign and the use of temporary signs. This is the first reading. Mr. Townsend.
Yes, this is to allow for the Find It All Roswell banners to be included in the 2012 calendar year. This extends it from the 2011. Staff would recommend approval at first reading.
Do we have a motion? Let's have a reading.
Thank you. This is an ordinance to amend the City of Roswell sign ordinance regarding the Find It All in Roswell campaign and the use of temporary signs within the City of Roswell. Now, therefore, pursuant to their authority, the Mayor and Council adopt the following ordinance. Article 22 of the City of Roswell zoning ordinance, signs, Section 22.12, temporary signs, is amended by changing the year from 2011 to 2012 in the following subsection 22.12A3. If approved, this will be the first reading.
Do we have a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Motion by Councilmember Price. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember DiPolito. Does anyone in the audience have any questions or comments? Any further discussion by council? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously.
The next item is initiation of a proposed text amendment to the sign ordinance related to the distribution of allowable ground and wall sign square footage. Mr. Townsend.
We're sure we're ready to do this discussion at this time of the evening.
This is only a initiation.
This is
not
initiation.
a final approval, and there's an option for the Planning Commission to comment and further amendments by council. So
okay.
I would hope that we don't beat it to death.
Okay.
Move for approval.
That sounds fine to me.
Move to initiate.
That's great.
Motion to initiate by Councilmember Price, second by Councilmember Eigelhart. Any further discussion? Councilmember Orleans? Second by Councilmember Orleans. Does anyone in the audience have any questions or comments? Any further discussion by council? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously. At this time, we'll call upon a liaison to our Environmental Public Works Department, Councilmember Becky Wynn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Approval of a budget amendment 440C102411 in the amount of $550,000 for conceptual planning for the planned system improvements for the Roswell Water Utility Treatment Plant. Mr. Mooring.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. This is part of our ongoing program for water system improvements. Our permit for expansion of the water plant, a preliminary permit has been issued, or draft permit, excuse me. We have completed the comment period. As of early last week, there had been no comments received. And so we expect that within the next month or so that we will have approval for expansion of our water plant. As a part of that, we need to do preliminary engineering report to satisfy GFA requirements. Our expectation is that GFA loans will be the most cost-effective means. However, we do have bonding availability if that is the case. And as you know, we are currently undertaking the well building design with the assistance of the Corps of Engineers, so that is a third alternative for funding. But our plan right now is simply to request a budget amendment in the amount of $550,000 to take care of the cost of preliminary engineering report and an environmental planning document. We have conservatively estimated the cost of those at $550,000. That money is available in the water fund, and we ask your approval of this budget amendment.
The question is $550,000 for planning. What's the next phase going to cost?
The next phase then would be to create, take that concept plan. We would hold public hearings, get approval of council to move forward with an appropriate plan, and then we would arrange for funding and go into actual design engineering phase by phase.
Do we have any estimate of what that the build-out might cost?
Yes, sir. The total package was presented in September at our Water Resources Division, but it's on the order of $15 million. That would include storage, the intake and channel improvements on Big Creek, the new plant itself, interconnection, and additional storage.
Is it anticipated that we'll be able to fund this entire project from the water fund without going to the general fund or looking at the taxpayers in general for support?
Yes, sir, absolutely. This will be entirely funded by the water fund, and in fact, all of the improvements that we're considering in phase one are done with the intention of reducing our net operating cost. As you well know, and I think most council members are aware, we have 6 staff members, 6 operators at our water plant so that we can operate 24 hours a day. We're limited by the availability of flow in Big Creek. So we can actually more than double. We will increase from 1.2 to 2.8 million gallons per day. Our operating cost will only go up slightly for additional chemicals and power. Manpower cost will not change. So we had presented charts. I'll be glad to show you that now if you like. But basically, we will reduce our operating cost in about half. And so, in answer to your question, yes.
Does the council have any other questions? Do we have a motion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I make a motion to approve the budget amendment in the amount of $550,000.
Motion by Councilmember Wynn to approve the $55 million budget amendment.
$550,000.
$550,000.
Oh, God, just give me a heart attack. $550,000.
$550,000.
Thank you.
For the budget amendment. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember DiPolito. Does anyone in the audience have any questions or comments? Yes, sir. Come forward, please. You'll give us your name and address.
Lee Fleck, Martin's Landing. First of all, let me compliment Councilman Price, Councilman Wynn, and Councilman DiPolito for their successful candidacy. Let me start by, I have a question first based on an observation. Oh, can I get this, please? I've noticed what I perceive was a well being drilled in this vicinity right here.
No, that's a church.
That is Willio.
Yep.
That is 120. I could have sworn to God I saw a drill right in that vicinity, right there, this past weekend.
It's probably core samples to put the church in.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah.
A church? Okay, I saw, could have sworn to God I saw a drill, well, a wellhead right there. Vertical drill, but it could have been core samples. You could be right. Okay, I was just wondering whether that had anything to do with what was going on there. I appreciate you clarifying that. Okay, the reason that I want some clarification is due to, hopefully some of you can remember the June 1st, 2001 first reading of the budget. At that time, I questioned water and sewer expenditures, and what I'm going to read from is from the actual minutes. Okay? And allow me to finish here, and then you'll understand why I'm going to question some of the numbers, or I will continue to question them. At that time, and these are from the minutes of that meeting, he discussed, that was me, water and sewage expenditures, and said that the amount of money paid to Fulton County to purchase water to sustain the water plant was had gone from $600,000 and spiked to $1 million. That was actually on the budget in the first reading. Mr. Mooring stated that the budgeted amount was $700,000, and that's what he had estimated. Of course, that's what it had been every year prior to that. Mayor Wood asked why there was an increase from year to year. Mr. Mooring could not give us an answer. Kay Love stated the part of the increase was, et cetera, but the bottom line was that the number that was showing at that time was a more accurate dollar amount budgeted for that utility. 9 days later, when the final budget came out, I need that zoomed in somehow. Please. 9 days later, that $1 million Yeah. 9 days later, that number miraculously changed to $550,000 from $1 million on the first. So I hope you can understand why I now question when I hear numbers being proposed. And I will continue to do so every time I hear numbers proposed on the water treatment plant. I presume that the $551,000, This comes from your comprehensive annual financial report of last year. I think it was clarified that that's actually coming out of the Water Enterprise Fund, which currently has a cash balance of $2.5 million. So you're going to use about $500,000 for that, is that correct? That's where you're getting your $500,000, that's the budget? You're not getting it out of general funds, right?
Correct.
Thank you. Now, I want a clarification on the conceptual planning for the planned system improvement, and allow me to finish. Okay. You've had an Army Corps of Engineering do your well studies. And as far as those well studies, which were in the original draft, okay, the bottom line is, as stated in section 16.7, that the proposed project would withdraw an estimated 170,000 gallons per day, and that for the optimize the long-term productivity, it would be recommended to not use the pump the water out of those for more than 10 to 14 days per month. So your wells is really a non-issue, as defined by the Army Corps of Engineers. I believe there was a comment that funding would be from GIFA. Is that correct?
That's our expectation.
You never get money from them. You know better than even offer that. They haven't offered money to anybody in the state for years. They've been sitting on that money for how long?
Mr. Fleck, once you get all your questions out, we'll give staff an opportunity to respond to them.
I don't think that's a realistic. We're going to go to a bond, a revenue bond, you know quite well.
Yeah, Mr. Fleck, the absence of a response does not indicate an agreement.
Very well.
We're giving you an opportunity to address all of these issues, and then we'll give staff an opportunity to respond. But I don't want to interrupt your comments. But simply, silence up here is not the same as agreement.
Very well. Okay. But I think we all know that we're looking at a revenue bond. At any rate, you had a pretty reputable firm who presented the water system master plan, and I think that if you look at your capital projections and everything that you proposed, there's almost a match for everything in there. As far as your water tank and your 10 million gallon water supply tank, it's surprising how closely all these numbers relate to the analysis by the engineering firm. So I consider that relatively accurate. But what concerns me is the term that you're using here, conceptual. And I want to read statements from Mr. Mooring, and I've been asking this from day one, and I keep getting this statement thrown back at me. And I don't believe this conceptual program is addressing what has been discussed for over 2 years. And this is verbatim. We will embark on an economic assessment when we have solid information on the technical feasibility of both the surface and groundwater improvements we have in mind. When we have those pieces together, we will undertake the overall economic assessment and rate study. It almost seems like we're skipping that and moving right into a planning phase. I want to know, is that the case? Are we skipping the economic feasibility study altogether? That's all I have to ask.
Mr. Mooring, if you'll answer Mr. Fleck's last question first, and then you'll have an opportunity to respond to any other comments he's made.
First, with respect to GIFA funding, we currently have loans from GFA, one for $1.5 million and one for $1.2 million. We have every expectation that additional funding will be available, and because of our Water First status, we will receive a 1% reduction in the loan rate. So that's why we believe that GFA funding will be the most economical approach. But, you know, we're not going to bank on anything until we actually have done that, but we know that we can't do anything, whether it's GFA funding, whether it's bond funding, without having the appropriate engineering documentation, and that's why we plan to do the preliminary engineering report that is a basic requirement for proceeding with that work. This chart is some information that you saw presented at the September quarterly Water Resources Division presentation. This is a projection of operating costs with and without the recommended capital improvements. We are continually undertaking the economic analyses, refining the numbers as we have them, but as of this stage, the costs that we have for the treatment plant, for the storage, for the intake improvements are all conceptual. That's why we need to do the engineering study in order to refine those cost estimates. But we know that with the recommended changes that we will substantially reduce the costs of our operation. This was another chart. This was another chart that was prepared and was part of that presentation. Basically, this demonstrates the cost savings over the initial 5-year period. They total about $3 million. The bulk of that is for reduction in water purchase cost. There's an additional $592,000 that will result from having new equipment that doesn't require, so that we can reduce our repair and refurbishment costs. And finally, with the new equipment, our production costs will go down as well. So through those cost savings over time, that is the plan, is to generate to pay for the costs of the improvements that we're doing, and it will all be done as we have previously discussed with the Water Fund.
Thank you, Mr. Mooring.
I am very glad that you made the point, okay, with regard to your savings by not purchasing water from Fulton County. And I assume that you're committing that those savings will be rolling back into the water fund, not into the general fund.
Absolutely.
So that $1 million a year that you're spending for water will be used to or 700,000, whatever you want to call it, or 550 if you change the numbers to that. That will be going to the water fund exclusively, right?
Yes.
Okay. It's interesting that you showed those figures that you had, and I don't doubt them. You know, anybody can come up with any figures. This is the projections that I hope you had all had the opportunity to see, which I presented previously. This is by the engineering staff that did the analysis of what the sustainability cost would be for your water plant. And it's quite different from what was shown a moment ago. You have this report. It's available to you, and it's showing the revenue that you're going to have to generate annualized to maintain that plant. Okay? And they're actually saying you need to increase your annual revenue by 2.5% to 3% per year. So now if you're driving down the unit cost and you need to increase your revenues, who's making up the difference, ladies and gentlemen? Your grid is limited. You don't have additional capacity. You don't have additional clients. I see that as only one option, And I think that this is one of the things that's going to need to come out in your public discussions, is you're currently covering 50% of your water is coming from Fulton County currently, and to cover that revenue gap, there's no doubt that you're going to have to increase your utility fees to the public, and I think you need to be upfront with them. This was an excellent analysis by a reputable firm that you paid for, you brought in. These are the numbers. They project that $17 million revenue bond to have a long-term sustainability cost of $33 million, which is going to have to be paid for by a very limited portion of your population. I hope you take that into consideration. I don't have a dog in the fight. I get my water from Fulton County. There's a lot of people in this immediate area that are going to be impacted by that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fleck. Does anyone else wish to comment on this? We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion by council? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously. This time we'll hear from our city attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. The first item I have is approval of an ordinance to annex the Broadwell property by the 100% method. The property owner filed a petition to annex approximately 2.13 acres in land lot 46 of the 1st District, 2nd section of Fulton County. The property is currently located in unincorporated Fulton County, and the property owner requests to be annexed into the city. With your approval, I'll read the second reading.
You'll read the second reading.
Thank you. This is an ordinance to annex the Broadwell property. Now, therefore, the mayor and council do hereby adopt the following ordinance. The city of Roswell does hereby annex property described in Exhibit A, attached hereto and incorporated herein, and more particularly described below, into the corporate limits of the city of Roswell. And if approved, this will be the second reading of the ordinance.
Mr. Davidson, are we designating how it would be zoned when it's annexed?
That will be moving forward separately.
There'll be a separate motion.
That will be coming later.
Later. All right. So we'll decide the zoning later.
Move
I
for
believe
approval.
Mr. Broadwell is in a neighborhood that's zoned E2, and he will be asking to be brought in as E2.
Move for approval.
Motion for approval by Councilman Orleans is second by Councilman Wynn. All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously. At this time, I need a motion for closure to discuss personnel litigation and acquisition of real estate. Do we have a motion? Motion by Councilman Wynn. Is there a second? Second by Councilman Aguilar. All in favor, raise their hands. Passes unanimously. We're adjourned.
Mr. Braun,